I think we can start now. It's. I think we'll be expecting more people to join, judging from yesterday. But it's okay. I think we can start now. We'll record this session also, so we can also share the unlisted link to your friends if they need it later on. Okay, so I'm a very warm welcome to everyone who's here. I'm Raj. I'm a sophomore student from Barbaria Institute of Technology, and we are just going to start the session in a while. And today's day is very special for me because the three speakers that I'm bringing in for the talk are also like my, apart from very amazing programmers and developers, they are my close friends and they are the people who mentored me. And I'll give you an individual introduction before their sessions. But all these three people have done great work. They've achieved amazing things in like 3 years of time. Like they are third year students, and they are very positive when it comes to helping new minds and new developers learn whatever they can teach them, because they taught me many things. They are a team. They work in teams sometimes. I've been a part of it, and it's always great like how we work everything out. We've worked on projects which are very complicated, so to say, technically, but still we managed to have fun while doing everything. So we have Hemang Bhogyata. I think Hemang, if you're there, you can unmute your self. So me and Hemang, yeah, hi Hemang. So me and Hemang, we are going to talk about. So Hemang is a full stack developer. He also, like, one more thing, like from yesterday, like I told you, we there is no foundation in terms of tech stack, which is what all these three speakers also believe in, because I cannot I'll obviously say Hemang is a full stack developer, but he learns many more things. He has many more tech stacks added to his CV. So he, apart from a full stack developer, he also has like a business mindset. He has been working with startups since his first year. He has also been a Microsoft Student Learn Ambassador. It's a great program. You guys should check that out too. And yeah, let's dive into the topics. I'll leave Hemang to start the topic of full stack development and startups.
All right, let me just share my screen first.
Yeah. We'll be interacting in between, so you guys can also drop in your doubts in the chat box. I'll keep checking while Hemang is presenting.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, it's visible.
All right. First of all, thanks Raj for that lovely introduction. Hi everybody. My name's Hemang. Like Raj said, I'm a full stack developer mainly, but apart from that, I'm very much into the whole startup space. So I've had two startups till now. One of them failed miserably, and one I hope doesn't fail as miserably. So I'm currently co-founder at Keemut, where we basically work with connected car technology. So with cars like Teslas, and we work on basically vehicle valuation reports. Mainly, I work with Node.js, React, and Flutter. So if in case any of you guys have any doubts right now or even in the future, just feel free to reach out. I'll be happy to help. But I guess that's enough about me. Let's just directly dive into the gist of it. So first thing I'll be covering would be the full stack development, then we'll go a bit more into the business side of things and talk about a bit more about startups and stuff. When it comes to full stack developer, it's almost a term like a jack of all trades, where you basically do a lot of the things when you're in that development environment. And also, if any of you guys have any doubts, feel free to either leave them in the chat box or just unmute yourself and it'll be okay, or we can have a Q&A at the end, whichever one you guys prefer.
I'll be reading all your doubts in the chat box, so please drop them there. and I'll like you can unmute yourself also, but just to have a structured conversation, I'll reach that out to Hemang. So drop your conversation in the chat box.
Okay. Well, let's just start with full stack development. Then I think there's a lot of confusion in and around the development space when people talk about full stack. And here I just have a very simple. Full stack is basically just front end plus back end. That's all full stack means really. But this is more from a web point of view, but I think a similar concept will apply when you move to app development. So front end is basically just whatever you see. Even in this Google Meet, you see all the text boxes, everything that's your client. That's basically what you use to interact with the website. That's what the front end does, right? Basically, even if you consider like a bank portal, all your banking information, your transaction buttons, all that is your client side. That's basically the UI. That's what you use to interact with the website, and that runs on a web browser. And backend is more or less the logic of your website. So if you consider a simple thing like a banking portal, let's say you are transacting, you are sending some money to your friend. Let's say you are paying him 5,000. You click that OK button. That's up to the point that the front end will handle. From that point, it'll go to a backend where basically business logic, as in just the brain of your website. So it will first check like what's your how much money do you have in your account. It will check if it's more or less. Then it will go back to the backend. It will update your banking information. It will deduct 5,000 and increase your friend's amount by 5,000. I'm just giving a very like a brief overview of this means. So front end is basically whatever you see and you can interact with, and back end is more or less the logic, the database, all the kind of things. Um, Moving, I think a lot of people have this question that when it comes to full stack, how do you even start with it? So I think the easier the easier entry point is front end, I think, in my opinion. But again, if you prefer more logical approach, you can probably start with the back end and be all right. But with front end, when you're starting, I think especially with web, I would say you could start with HTML and CSS as the first entry point. Understand the basics of HTML, at least the basic HTML and CSS. So understand how to build at least basic tables, column layouts, and stuff like that. You don't need to really be able to build the most beautiful websites, but even if you can build a simple layout, then that's enough. Although as a personal preference, I would advise that you at least pick up a UI library. So UI libraries are basically where a lot of the CSS is written for you. So stuff like Bootstrap or Material UI, all they are is just a collection of CSS that you can directly access without having to worry a lot. Even with Bootstrap, you will have to write a lot of CSS yourself, but it eases your workload a lot. And I think it's, especially when you're going to build projects, more than likely it'll be that you will be building on top of a UI library. So it's something you could consider picking up. But it basically just makes your life easier when it comes to CSS. That's all it does really. Even with HTML and CSS, even if you just go through the basics, I know it's a bit boring. It's a bit tedious to learn HTML and CSS, but just go through the basics and that should be able to carry you forward. When it comes to JavaScript and the web, I like to call JavaScript the weird kid in the class. It's quite a bit quirky language. When I mean quirky, I don't mean that it's a hard language necessarily. It's a pretty lightweight scripting language. And again, one misconception a lot of people have is that JavaScript is Java. It's completely false. JavaScript and Java are two different things. And actually, as a fun fact, the reason they named JavaScript like that is because because at that time Java was very popular, so they wanted to like gain a marketing boost. So they named it after Java and named it now JavaScript, so that people think, oh, it's Java's like easier version or something like that, which is not true really. But when it comes to JavaScript, it runs on your client side, so it helps makes things dynamic. I have a quick illustration that can basically explain what JavaScript, HTML, and CSS do. JavaScript is essentially, HTML is basically the structure or the skeleton of your website. So like what is supposed to be placed where. So like you have a nav bar, then that would be at the top, and you'll have like a sidebar that will be at the left side, then you'll have some content in between. That's what HTML does. HTML is what we call a markup language, and that essentially means just the structure of the page. That's it. and CSS is just beautification, so stuff like colors, even stuff like animations can be done with CSS, although that's a bit more advanced. But CSS essentially handles the presentation of the web page, and JavaScript is essentially just making things do stuff and making it dynamic. So let's say when I click a button I want to pop up, that's where JavaScript will come in handy. And yeah, that's about the basic description of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If you guys have any doubts, just feel free to leave them in the chat box. I think when it comes to JavaScript, I don't want to come across and make it appear like JavaScript is hard, but you have to be careful with JavaScript because it can be a little bit complicated at times, or not even complicated, it's a bit quirky. It has its own quirks. Uh, First, you just understand the basic syntax. I mean, learn to do the basic loops, conditions, functions, all that kind of thing. And again, with JavaScript, I would emphasize one thing is don't memorize things, or even with any language really, don't memorize, just understand what it does. Because if you spend time memorizing the syntax, it's not really productive because in my experience at least, you'll memorize syntax as you do more and more coding. I mean, it's just understandable that if you do something 5 times a day, you will eventually end up memorizing it. So just focus on understanding the core concepts. Uh, I'm not sure about the technical background of, but so I'll just keep it at a brief overview. But understand the basic DOM manipulation. I'm not gonna go too deep into it. If you guys have any doubts, just leave them in the chat box. Yeah, then you can move on to some advanced concepts like closures, callbacks, promises, etc. But again, I guess the one thing I'll emphasize with even just HTML, CSS, and CSS is build projects. Just make sure you whatever you do, make sure it's project oriented. Don't just learn to build a star pattern and leave it at that. That's not really going to be productive for you in the long run. Just make sure even if it's a small to-do app, just build it and try and build it on your own by just even by googling and stuff. Just make sure you understand how to use the languages that are there. This is a bit more optional thing. It's called TypeScript, and TypeScript is what I like to call the sane brother of JavaScript. Because JavaScript has so many flaws, I would say, people came up with TypeScript, and TypeScript essentially is like they built another language on top of JavaScript where they tried to fix a lot of the flaws of JavaScript. So it's similar to scripting, but it's compiled language. So they have added even stuff like static types and all, and so that helps a bit more in easier error detection and stuff like that. But it's completely optional right now. A lot of the libraries don't even support TypeScript, but it is something that the industry is slowly moving towards, where you will see a lot more people using TypeScript over JavaScript, just because it fixes a lot of the flaws that JavaScript has.
I think you can toggle between JavaScript and TypeScript anytime, like even
Yeah,
in React and yeah, like
yeah, it
Angular
is possible to.
TypeScript. So.
Yeah, essentially all TypeScript is essentially at the end of the day, TypeScript will still compile down to JavaScript, so you are still writing JavaScript, but just in a different format. That's all it is. And even a
Great.
lot of the concepts are same between the languages. So yeah, you can switch between both of them at any time.
Yeah, Jaideep, you can unmute yourself. You can ask your question. Hemang is here.
Yes, I have a little bit experience in full stack web development in web field only. But I have a question. Like, if a client comes to me and asks for an e-commerce website,
Mhm.
so personally, I would prefer WordPress over coding it, over hard coding it, because I have
Yeah,
experience. Like in WordPress, you can just add plugins and the website is ready. Versus hard coding it in Node.js, Django, it's very difficult. So, what's your view on that? I mean,
yeah. So there
future
are not.
forward.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that's a question even I had when I began for is that there are many these site builders that are there. They're called that are basically WordPress, even Wix, and there are many more that basically you can just drag and drop and use plugins that basically other people have built to essentially just by even almost no code you can build a entire web page. Uh, the drawback that comes is whenever you have to do something custom. So when it comes to things a bit more let's say you have your own custom API and stuff that you want to integrate into that. When it comes to WordPress, it might not be exactly possible. But like you said, if it's just a normal OLX like app, let's say it's like a e-commerce application, like you said, it is easier to build in WordPress. But when the client asks you for some sort of a customization, like let's say they want some novel feature, like they want to integrate, I'm just thinking on top of my head, let's say they want to integrate machine learning in some way, they want to add some sort of user tracking or something like that. At that point, you will be very limited with WordPress, and you'll find that yourself at a point where you'll have to build things yourself eventually.
Right, and adding to that, like WordPress, like he said, like WordPress and Wix and all these new upcoming, like WordPress is a bit old, but like Wix and everything that's coming up, there is this thing that like if there is a website made from Wix, you'll know this is a Wix website. It is that mainstream in certain ways. So there are limitations to it, and it's morely, at least as of now, it's for people who have a limited use of their website. So to
Yeah,
say.
I agree in the sense that if it's a normal application, you don't need much customization, then you can definitely go with WordPress.
If it's an e-commerce website, if you're truly considering it, you should also see Shopify.
Yeah, even that's a
I,
good option.
yeah, Shopify is another
Yeah,
thing.
that's great. I have seen that. They are giving full front end.
Yeah,
Insurance.
yeah,
Yep.
it's more than that, but yeah, there's a lot to it.
I think there's really just pros and cons to both approach.
True, true.
I can go into much more detail, but I think we'll continue with it,
I
and
think,
we'll
yeah,
take this
that's
conversation offline as well.
Uh, and also thank you, Jagdish, you're asking good questions. Like I saw you also asking things yesterday. So yeah, keep asking, guys. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, let's
Yeah,
move on.
so, yeah, like we just said, there's a pros and cons to both approach. Just before you begin any project, just make sure you do your research and then pick whatever the tools you want. Yeah. When it comes to front end, I think you can almost say that once you know HTML, CSS, JS, you are a front end developer. But you could go one step further and pick up, and I think there's some echo happening.
Sorry. Yeah, actually, there's a question by Dhruv
Okay.
in chat. If you could address that.
Okay, let me check. Yeah, like you said, that a lot of the advanced plugins will be adding cost to your, because the plugins won't always be free. There sometimes they will be paid. So at that point, you could almost just like build your own stuff at that point, because that's going to be more helpful for you in the long run than using some already built plugin. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, we can go on. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, in front end, I think you can pretty much pick up good framework that will be really helpful for you in getting internships or even contracts and stuff, because a lot of the times just HTML, CSS and JS will not be enough. Some popular choices that are there are like React. In the React is not a framework, it's a library. And there's Angular and there's Vue. And again, there's no best option here. React is more if you want a bit more quick development, I guess. It's more component, I mean, all of them are component driven. Angular is more suited for like more uh, how do I say, more large scale products. It's a bit more manageable, and Vue is kind of the mixture of both React and Angular in that sense. But again, you can pick whichever one you want. There's no best option here really. Yeah, just understand how to build components and just understand state management. And again, the important thing is build projects. Just don't make sure you don't just understand something and you leave it at that. Use it to build something. That's the very key point in development, I think, is that just build as many projects as you can, and what you'll see is you'll learn a lot more building projects than by watching any tutorial or by reading any book. That's the best thing I can say.
Also, like I think when picking a framework, we should also make, because in our communities, like in the tech industry, it's very common to become fanboys of particular languages and frameworks. Like you become like a Python fanboy. Like I
Yeah.
was got into that. So I think people should know this, that there is no मतलब framework तुम्हारे सगे नहीं लगते in, so to say. So
Yeah.
you should always choose water, like React has its own use. Angular on the other side has other uses. Vue is used by like other people.
Yeah.
You should always research and pick your framework according to your use, not as in like, yeah, I'll only use React everywhere. It's not like that. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, there's no real best option here. Like, there's none of them are best because if one was best, then industry will just be using that. They won't, and React and Vue won't exist if Angular was the best. That's the point, right? So there's no real best option. All of them have their pros and cons. So just pick one, learn it, and then if you like it, stick with it. Else you can always explore new things. Yeah, just some things to be aware of when you're working with front end is this. You don't have to learn everything. Like I said, at first when I even began, I tried to. Oh, one second, I by mistake closed it. Mm, yeah. So even when I began, I was stuck in this thing that, oh, I have to learn React, then I can learn Angular, then I can learn Vue. Don't focus on learning. Okay, focus on learning. What I mean is, you don't have to learn everything. Follow a need to learn basis. If there's a project that you think React is not good for, then you can go for Angular, right? Or if you have already learned Angular and you think Angular is not working for this project, then you can shift to React. You don't have to learn everything. That's because if you attempt to learn everything, it will take you years upon years to learn everything. And again, do not skip HTML and CSS. Just make sure you understand at least the bare basics. It's boring, but you need it. Again, like I said, build projects. That's another key point there. Again, JS can be sometimes a bit frustrating to work with. Just be patient with it. You'll understand the language more and more as you move on. It's not a hard language. It's easy to learn, but it's a very hard language to master because there's a lot of things you have to understand on its internal workings. Again, and please use a proper code editor. I've seen a lot of web developers who still like attempt to use Notepad, especially in institutes and stuff. They still emphasize on using Notepad, which I don't get. Please use a proper code editor, like something that has intelligence, and it will just make your learning process a whole lot easier. I think we'll be shifting to the back end now. So in case you guys have any uh, questions on front end, now would be a good time. Uh, Raj, are there any questions?
I think we don't have questions right now.
All right.
So okay, yeah, we can move to backend. If you guys have any front end questions, you can just leave them below in the chat. I'll keep checking those.
Yeah, even if you guys get doubts later on, just feel free to ping me on Discord and stuff, and I'll be happy to help you guys.
Okay, there is a question you can
All right.
check in the chat. Yeah.
Do you advise to use templates like Team? Yeah. So like I said before, Bootstrap, Tailwind, Material UI, there's many different. They're not templates really. They are more UI libraries that provide you a lot of the CSS. I personally prefer using them because whenever I start a project, I don't want to build stuff like columns and rows from scratch. And that's actually a good point because in in development especially they say don't reinvent the wheel. If something exists there that does your job, just use that. You don't have to build everything from scratch, and like just feel free to use as many libraries as you can, and just make sure the library is reliable though, like before you start using it. That's the only thing. But yeah, don't reinvent the wheel unless you have to. Just yeah.
And also like in the beginning, if we have like in of course in the beginning, like HTML CSS coding is not something you could do by your own self. If you can't design, just bootstrap stuff. Like if you want, use bootstrap and libraries like that.
Yeah, even CSS will take you a long while to actually be able to build really good stuff from scratch. So in the beginning, even if you just learn the basics and then start using a ready-made library, it will be perfectly fine. There's no issues in that. But yeah, obviously make sure that over time you do pick up more and more CSS. You'll have to keep learning. There's no escaping CSS in that sense.
Yeah, of course, it's all CSS in the end. Like if you see like bootstrap also. So yeah,
Yeah.
let's move to backend now.
Backend, like we just discussed in the beginning, it's like the logic of your application really. It's all the processing, it handles all the storage stuff, so it handles connections with databases and stuff like that. It, if I say in one term, it serves the front end with the information it requires. So if it's, let's say it's some application like Gmail, the backend will serve you with the email information, and then front end just displays that. And again, backend, I would emphasize backend is responsible for a lot of the security of your application. Not to say that front end does not need to care about security, when front end has a lot of things that needs to keep in mind when it comes to, I think we'll go into security a bit later on, but let's move on. With backend, like with front end, there's almost a norm that people use HTML, CSS, and JS. With backend, there's no real norm there. There's a lot of variety of languages that can get the job done. So JavaScript and Node.js, that's what I use personally, and it's perfectly fine to use JavaScript on the backend, even though the language has its flaws. It can perfectly do the job. Again, Python, same thing as Django and Flask, and there are a variety of other languages like PHP, Ruby, Golang, etc. And again, there's no best option here either. Like, pick whichever language you prefer. Personally, I think for beginners, JavaScript and Python are a bit more welcoming compared to the other languages. Again, that's my personal opinion. Like, you can use any language or framework you prefer. Really, there's no limitation in that sense. There's no best option. Just whatever you prefer. If you're good with Python, you can obviously go with Python because you don't want to learn a new language. So you can always, okay, you can always shift between things. But each of them has their own pros and cons. Learn about REST APIs. Just learn how to build basic CRUD APIs. CRUD means create, read, update, and delete. That's basically just inserting, deleting, updating, and stuff like that. Just understand the basic API first. If you can build that, oh man. If you can just do that, then you can move forward. Learn about databases. Again, there's two options mainly, SQL or no SQL. There's no best option here either. Ideally, people start with SQL because it's a bit more accessible compared to no SQL. And like you see with everything here is that there are a lot of options. Don't get overwhelmed. You can start with any of them and you'll be fine. Eventually, you'll need to learn other things no matter what. So,
Also, like I think Hemang has kept the whole presentation pretty beginner friendly, but still, if you guys feel that it's going a bit like fast for you, so to say, I would like to know that in the chat. Like, I think it's pretty normal for a beginner, but still, if that's the concern for the public, I'd like to know if it's going fast. Someone can just tell me. Okay.
yeah, I've kept a bit more high level overview, but there are some technical jargon here and there. So if you guys are confused and have questions, is
Correct, correct. So no, it's okay. But Aishwarya, like, can you just tell me if it's so? I mean, by yes, you mean it's normal or it's going a bit fast for you?
So actually, what is the problem is that I haven't much researched about these things yet, so I don't know whatever he's speaking. So I personally felt that I need to research something. Then only I'll be able to understand what he's saying.
Correct, correct. So no, it's not about research. It's more like about self-learning. This is just like our introduction
yeah,
to
I think this is just a high level overview to make you guys aware of what all stuff is there, and then you can
just
explore.
take a note of this and then research on it later on. It's not about you have to grasp it right now and
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
take an
If,
exam.
and again, even in future, if you're interested in this subject and you have like some doubts, just feel free. I mean, I'd
Yeah,
be happy to help.
yeah, everybody's there. So yeah. So I think we can keep going and like we can.
I'll slow down a little bit so you guys can understand properly.
Yeah,
Maybe
let's
I'm going
do
too
like
fast.
the more basics. Like yeah,
All right.
yep.
Yeah, just when you're on the backend, just learn how to deploy things. Deploying means basically you put something on a production server and then, like you have Google, then google.com website is running on some server, right? So that's what I mean by that. There's some jargon here. You can ignore that for now, I think. But the point being, do focus on just understand the basics of it, like stuff like proxy servers, your firewalls. And firewall is a common concept you can probably you have come across even in your own PC. Uh, Look into SSL. So SSL is basically HTTPS. Most websites by default run on HTTP, but now people are shifting towards HTTPS. I can go into technical significance if you guys have any, but it's always better to have SSL on your website. So if you look into your browser, you'll see a lock beside your URL. That's basically signifying that this website has SSL. And you'll learn how to link domains and stuff. If you guys want to host your own websites, like for projects and stuff, there are a lot of resources available, but the ones I personally use are Heroku, Netlify, and GitHub Pages, where you can pretty much host at zero cost. your own websites and APIs and stuff like that. All right, I think we'll be moving ahead. If you guys have any questions, just drop them in the chat. I think I'll emphasize this point very much, is that security is important. And this week for me has been a big lesson in that security is important. Do not ignore security when you're building applications. There are many people out there who will want to hack your applications, even though they might not want to hack your personal projects, but when you're working on for a company or working on your own product, make sure your application is secure. Learn about encryption and hashing. So encryption is where you don't store like let's say my password is Hemang123. I should not be storing that password as Hemang123. It should be as a random string that's encrypted. Again, encrypt the passwords. There was recently, just as back as a few years ago, there was a news that Facebook user databases had leaked, and it was found that even Facebook was storing a lot of the passwords in plain string. So make sure you don't store the passwords in plain string, because you're putting a lot of your users at risk when you do that. And again, security is a deep subject, but make sure you educate yourself whenever you're building. Just if it works, your job is not done. You have to make sure everything is secure. But again, it's a pretty deep subject. I've just given a brief level overview of what all things you can look out for as a back-end engineer, even as a full stack developer.
So like I think full stack people just think full stack is just back end and front end, but it's more than just back end and front end. It's other perks to it, like security is one of it. Then like server
By security, I don't mean that you will have to penetration test your websites. That's not your job.
True.
But the point being that when you're building something, keep security as a priority when you're building things.
Yeah, as in like security, like the basic knowledge of like nobody has to become like Elliot Alderson. Everybody just needs like a basic knowledge of how, like I can see DDoS there. So like basic knowledge about all this. So that would
just the basic. Even if you just cover your bases, that will be a lot more helpful, because there are a lot of websites that run right now that aren't really secure. Even something like security, like basic for like DDoS, a lot of the websites don't have that, which is a bit shocking. That if you are a hacker, it's a really golden opportunity for you, because there are a lot of engineers who don't emphasize on security, so you can easily, it's a golden market for you basically.
True. Also,
even as sorry, just want to point out one thing. So even recently there was this news about this app called MobiQuick, where they had a huge data leak in which the banking information, KYC information of millions of users was leaked. It does not harm the company, it harms their reputation, but at the end the real losses, the people whose data was leaked. So just be careful when you're building applications, just keep security in mind.
It's about being more responsible actually. Also, I think Jaideep has a question, Hemang, if you could address that.
Yeah, so Cloudflare essentially acts like a firewall in one sense for your website, but again, these are tools to assist you in your security, like security toolset, but they're not going to do the job for you. You have to configure these things properly. Even in your code, you could have certain flaws. Like, let's say you're storing passwords as a plain string. Cloudflare isn't going to solve that issue, right? If your databases should never be public, your databases should always be secured. Because if they are in the open, anybody can access them and steal your data, right? Cloudflare is just a tool you could use to basically prevent a lot of these things like DDoS, XSS, clickjacking, and stuff like that. I guess that was the question. I think we'll move ahead.
Yeah, I think we should move on. Yeah.
I think this was all I had really for full stack development. I didn't want to go into too much technical, because a lot of the people might not be experienced with full stack. So I'll just give some general tips you can use just that I've learned over the past 3 years of my development journey. Is that language doesn't matter, in the sense that this is a bit misleading. That's my fault, but language does matter from a technical point of view. A lot of languages have their own pros and cons. So what I mean is, which language you begin with when you're a newbie is that it does not matter. Like you could pick Python or you could pick Java or you could pick C++ or any other language, and it's not really going to affect you, because over time what you'll see is you'll never be working with one language. You'll always have to pick more and more languages up. So don't worry too much about what you begin with. Just make sure you understand it. Don't work for free. I guess that's, again, this is something like, don't work for free unless you have to. Obviously, if it's a training program, they might charge you, but I've seen a lot of Indian companies where they take internships for free and people are literally working like developers. I would personally advise against this because development is quite a bit in demand, not just in India but throughout the world. And if you're working for free, really just you're making yourself a loss because you're working for somebody else for free. Always, even if it's a minimal amount of 4 to 5 thousand, always demand a salary. Even if it's an internship, internships do pay. They have to pay, and a
Yeah,
lot of people don't understand it and they end up working for free.
I'm very happy, Hemang, you brought this point. I think it slipped between like the lines. I think we did not mention this, but it's my experience too. After in your second or third year, you might be offered internships that they'll like lure you in by saying कि आपको सीखने मिलेगा, and it's your first time, whatever, and they'll just basically what they'll do is they'll make you work for free, or in some cases it's paid internships, as in like you have to pay for doing their work.
Yeah, which is quite a bit stupid to be honest, because why should I pay you to work for you?
Yeah, you first of all always take some pay, whatever that amount is. Learning can be done anywhere, so that's not the thing. Always take
I
money.
think those days are gone where you had to go for a free internship to learn. You can learn from Udemy as well, right? Or from
Exactly,
any other online resource. So
exactly.
don't work for free unless you have to. Obviously, if it's a training program specifically, then you might have to work for free. Or but if it's an internship where you'll be working alongside other developers, you should not work for free because it's not any benefit for you really. That's
Correct.
just my point of view. Again, if you are comfortable working for free, then feel free.
Yeah.
Yeah. Avoid tutorial help, but this is a bit more, again, you'll experience yourselves, is don't get addicted to learning things, because the tech is a very vast thing. You'll get addicted to learning things new and new, but make sure you're building stuff as well along the way. Don't just learn 10 frameworks and you don't really have any projects to show for it. um, Read other people's code. I think that's a lot I'll emphasize. That's something I still struggle with. I'm still not very good at reading other people's code. There are a lot of things you'll see that there's a certain best practice in code that you'll have to follow. So if you read other people's code, you'll see that, oh, the way I've been doing it is not really the best way, and that you'll get to know more and more stuff about it. Learn to write tests and documentation, and this year has really taught me this. Always test your code. If your code works, your job is half done. You have to document how your code works as well as write tests for it. Again, this is something you guys will learn as you progress further, but sadly, this isn't really covered in most courses, or it's considered an advanced topic, but I think it's a very basic thing that you should learn how to document and test your code. And yeah, just keep learning and just enjoy what you code. That's why you code, right? Like you enjoy it. That's why. Just make sure you are always learning. There'll be always 10 new frameworks coming out every month. Just keep up to date. Be a part of the community as a whole, and yeah, enjoy yourselves. I think I'll just cover a bit more about startups about this. So this is where the technical portion ends. If you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Let's take some questions if there are any. Um, okay.
I think we are fine. I think there's no question.
Yeah, I think
If I'm talking about projects, like you said, we need to do projects and all that.
Mhm.
So, as I know my position. So initially, as I'm learning a particular language, so I have done with a particular topic. So I should perform all the projects with the limited topics, or I should wait to complete the whole topics to make a large project.
So I think you'll have to just do both approaches really. Obviously, you can't build a project when you just know the syntax. Like I'm talking more with JavaScript in mind, but you could build a to-do app, for example, with bare minimum knowledge of JavaScript, right? And then when at the end you are a bit more accomplished with JavaScript, you can build a bit more bigger projects. But even if it's a small to-do app, right, or a calculator you're building, right, it's still you'll learn things that you won't learn just by watching a tutorial. Like there'll be many scenarios that you'll be faced with where you'll just learn things. I guess that's one point I haven't included here is that even if you're still a student, you can still go for freelancing or taking on projects or stuff like that. It will be a bit tough for you to manage your timings, but if you do that, I think your work will teach you more than your studies will. That's my personal opinion, really, that more you work, the more you'll realize and learn a lot things a lot more faster.
Yeah, also like if you guys don't get ideas for projects, or if you've done, like Hemang said, don't get caught up in tutorial hell. Like don't just keep learning stuff, also apply them. So what you can do is go for hackathons, or open source is a good place. Like going, like there is this thing called Major League Hacking or MLH. So उनके every weekend hackathons होते हैं. Hackathons are what basically they are places कंपटीशन प्रोजेक्ट्स के लिए, और वहाँ पे प्रॉब्लम्स होते हैं कंपनीज के या उनके खुद के, और वो आप लोग सॉल्व करोगे. So hackathons are nice place to make good developer friends and make projects for your CV also. So check out.
I have compiled a list of resources for you guys to share at the end of the session.
Yeah, we can share those resources.
So you guys can then be a part of the Discord and get to learn new things.
Sure. Yeah, let's move on. I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure how interested you guys are actually in the whole business realm of the thing, but I'll keep it a bit more brief than I have with tech. I think when it comes to startups, there's a lot of craze right now. It's been there for the past five years. And if you ask me, it's a really good place to learn. And if you can, in the process, build a good business for yourself with your friends and all, then that's just the bonus for that, really. I think with startups, a lot of people are confused where they should begin. It's all about the idea at the end of the day. I mean, recognize problems around you, like look around, what are the problems you see? Again and again. Yeah, but recognize the problems that you or your friends or your family faces daily, right? Then you can think of ideas. Doesn't matter if you can implement them yourself or not. This is just a good practice in general that you can develop a problem solving approach to everything. Just see how you can solve it. Is that idea really feasible? Really, like, because if I consider the question of or problem of getting vegetables in a COVID environment, it's not that safe, right? What if I thought of an idea where a drone would come and deliver the vegetables? Is that feasible really though? Like, it sounds good, but how feasible is it to have a drone worth, I don't know how many lakhs of rupees, come and deliver you a vegetable, right? That's how feasible it is. I think that's my point. Even if you're just brainstorming, just make sure if your idea is feasible or not. And talk to potential users. If you're really serious about it, talk to people who are your target market. Let's say you're building something for like this vegetable thing, talk to your aunties in your neighborhood or uncles and then take their feedback, what they think. I'm just taking up a random idea here and just explaining. Don't build something nobody wants. I think that's a very key point. Always take feedback from your users, right? Always talk to them, because a lot of them, if it can happen, is you'll build something from scratch, it'll be ready, but nobody will want to use it because it's utterly useless. You don't want that scenario. If you're looking to find some early users for your product, you can always go on Reddit, Quora, Product Hunt, Discord groups. This is all digital medium, really, because physical stuff is not really possible right now. So Reddit, I think, is a very good source. Quora, again, a very good source. Product Hunt, when you're ready to do a beta launch, you can always post your ideas and products there and people will try them out. I think with startups, that's a very key point, is that get people to try it out. Even if it's not ready yet, even if it's a half-baked product, get people to give you feedback, and that's going to be very valuable to you in the long run. And I think having a good team is very important when it comes to startups, and you're very serious about it. You won't be able to do everything yourself. Always learn to make connections. Even though we are technical people, we like to work alone a lot of the times. Just make sure you connect with people. Even if you have just 10 or 20 connections, it's fine. Just make sure those connections are valuable. It's not about quantity, it's really about quality of the connections you have. If you have ideas amongst yourselves, you can always share with your friends and families, get feedback from them. And again, I would emphasize this point: be very careful who you are bringing on as your co-founder. And if you make a mistake in these things, it might come back to bite you later on. So, if you talk about an ideal team, I think a lot of startups will have either a business person, a technical person, and a marketing person, although it's not always possible. But generally, this is what you want at the bare minimum. It's not really about the profit you make in startups. This, when you think about it from a business perspective, this is a very questionable thing, because if you're not making profit really, how is it worth it to keep on going? And I think a lot of you might have seen there was this image that was rotating around in social media a couple of days back. I'm not sure how accurate it was, but it was showing the top Indian startups like Zomato, Cred, and stuff like that, and it was showing how big their losses were. Because the true thing that a lot of people struggle to understand in startups is that it's not about the profit, it's about your growth or the value that your startup has. And this can be a very hard thing to understand, because even if you consider a company like Twitter was not profitable until last couple of years, and it was running on losses till then. We'll get to how, the question will be that if they're making such big losses, how are they able to keep on going? If I'm making huge losses, how can I keep on going? But growth is essentially about the number of users you have and the user engagement. The last two terms are a bit more jargon, but acquisition cost is essentially how much you have to spend in marketing to get a user to use your app. And lifetime value is how much they pay you in their entire lifetime. Again, it's a bit more jargon, you can research more, and I've just listed them here in some growth measures. Yeah, a lot of the people have questions when they have startup apps and ideas is that I can't really afford to host a cloud server on AWS, for example, right? It costs thousands of dollars and I don't have that money. How do I get that money? Well, there are a lot of good opportunities and initiatives taken up by companies. So one of them is Y Combinator Startup School. Startup School has an initiative where if you go through their program, they provide you with $5,000 worth of credits. Last I checked, which you can use on AWS, obviously, and that way you get a lot of hosting for free. Now, obviously, each of these companies have their own initiatives that you can do more research on. You can always find an angel investor, or obviously collect some money on your own by taking on side jobs and contracts and stuff like that. Equity. I just want to spend some time on equity right now. Is that equity essentially means percentage ownership you have in a company. So generally, when co-founders or a company is founded, each of the co-founder gets a percentage equity. And equity essentially represents how much of the company they own. And the first few employees that come along will get a small percentage of equity. And when you go out to raise some money from venture capitalists, you'll see that they'll ask you for some equity, and in return, they'll give you some money. So let's say I'm investing $100,000 in Zomato, then I'll give the company Zomato $100,000, and in return, I'll get a percentage. Like, let's say I get 5% of Zomato. That means I own 5% of Zomato company. That's how it works. One thing I'll note here, if you guys are interested with startups and you do end up working for a startup, if you are one of the few employees, always take equity, because a lot of the startups won't be able to pay you the market rate. They'll pay you a little bit below the market rate. And so what you can do is you can ask them for a small percentage of their company in return. And if that company does end up becoming big, then, well, you're good enough for that.
Yeah, like I recently got to network with this person. So like he was working at a startup, and the company got acquired by Google, and he got like a humongous share price for that, like the equity price. So it's always good to work. Like I think the new culture would be working like till now it was more like FANG that people would aim FANG like Facebook and Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, all this. But I think like the recent developers that are coming out, they are more interested in working with startup companies, like good funded startup companies because they are paying well and they have good work culture too.
Yeah, so
Startup.
even till date, right now, also if you, I think, I'm not sure if it's still going on, but last I had checked, if you still uh, get hired from Google, you get a small amount of shares in Google. So that's still something that they're giving to their employees as an added incentive to join their company, really, because you're owning a small, even if it's a 0.005% that of Google, that's still a big amount.
Correct. Because these job offers we see every year, like IIT Bombay students get 1 crore jobs. So they are not 1 crore jobs; they are like 20,
Yeah,
30 lakh jobs. But the other part is some shares or something like that.
yeah.
Like, yeah.
I think if you're getting hired by a startup and if you know that you are one of the initial employees, you have a big leverage, and at the bare minimum, you can take 1% equity in that company, and that's the bare minimum I'm talking about.
Correct. Yeah.
Um, so one question I guess some of you might have is that if I get 1% of that, let's say I join Google as an initial employee, I have 1% share, and after 2 months I quit. Do I still get to hold that 1%? The answer is no. The way it works is you don't get the full 1% as soon as you join. The equity is essentially earned. You don't get the full 1% initially, you get it over time. So generally it's a 4-year period where you get 0.25% every year. So you have to earn that equity, you don't just get it initially. Even with co-founders, it's the same thing. A co-founder will not just get 25% equity by default. They will have to earn that over time. Yeah. So when it comes to raising capital, basically getting investments from other people, a good option is venture capitalists. They're basically people with a bit too much money who are willing to invest in startups. Startups are always classed as a high risk investment because you don't really know if a startup's going to work. But when they invest, they get a percentage equity share in your company, and that's how it works. Um, yeah, this is a bit more of a bit too serious about your startup. Always have a pitch deck. Know how to make a pitch. I think that's what I've learned a lot with startups is as engineers, maybe we don't understand how to market something, but when you go into this environment, you'll have to pitch no matter what. So you get to really build that social ability to pitch something to someone. Have a plan, really, that's a big important thing. Just what's your vision with the company, just know that. And exit strategy, again, it's a jargon, but you guys can Google it, but more and more. Yeah, and just know what, why, and when. So when you're going for an investment, know how much money you need, why do you need that money, and when are you going to need that money. That's just know your basics before you go for any investment. And yeah, I think a lot of times I got this question is what is it like to work in a startup. So I've had almost 2 years experience now. I think with startups is that it is definitely a high stress environment. If you're someone who doesn't like to work long hours, it's probably best to stray away from startups because at the bare minimum, you'll see yourself 12 to 14 hours a day. That's the bare minimum you'll be working. It's a lot like firefighting. There'll always be issues, new issues every day that will come up that you'll have to solve, and just be ready for that. But the one big advantage that I think, especially if at a young age, if you're working in a startup, in my experience, you get to learn things at an exponential rate. Every single day you will learn new things, you'll face different problems, and it will essentially just help you not just technically but even as a person you'll just learn to deal with problems a lot better, and you just be ready to adapt whenever you enter that startup environment. It's a very fast moving environment, so you have to be able to adapt. You can't say that, oh, I'm an engineer, I'm not going to do some marketing. You might have to, and so just be ready for it, right? Yeah, and just the last couple of slides, just some things to keep in mind is, let's say you're starting a startup with someone, be very careful how much equity each person gets. There are even scenarios where a co-founder gets a salary, in the sense that one co-founder will be paying the other co-founder because they're not financially settled, right? So in that case, the person who is paying will get more equity, and the person who is getting the salary will get a slightly less equity in return. Avoid frivolous expenses. I think I've seen a lot of this with startups, more in the US though, but they invest in things like big offices and a pool table and a foosball table, and they make these frivolous expenses that ends up wasting the money of the company. Because it's cool, right, to have an office of your own, but unless you really need that, don't spend the money, because it's not your money, right? It's the company's money, and it's the investors' money. Don't waste it, because it will come back to bite you one day, and then when it comes, it will be bad for you. And when you're going for investors, don't take up the offer. Like somebody gives you $100,000 on the road, don't take it. Ask the investor what kind of connections they have, right? What are they bringing to the team? Because at the end of the day, that they're going to own a percentage of your company. So be aware of that. Avoid technical debt. I think this is a more technical thing. Just make sure your code is properly documented, tested, everything. And I think this is something very important. The last point is don't get burnt out. Although eventually, if you are in a startup, you will get burnt out one day or another, because there's only so many months you can work 12 to 14 hours a day. So when you need that break, just take that break and just make sure to recharge yourself, and just, yeah, enjoy what you're building. And yeah, that's pretty much
I
it.
think burnout is something everybody should avoid.
Yeah,
Even
not
as
just,
dev,
yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
even as developers, I've heard like game developers and everyone have like 12 hours of working and all this. And it's good for people who have that kind of habit or that kind of passion. But I don't think it's a very normal thing for like, the main kind of developers to like work for 12 hours or 13 hours. And
Yeah, so game development is a specific industry because it's a very big task to make a game.
correct,
It's a
correct, yeah.
very common thing where people will be working at the bare minimum 12 hours. And startups, again, if you want your startup to succeed, I think you'll have to put in the hours, because think of this, right? You're a small company, you're starting in your garage or your flat, right? You're going to have to put in the double the effort a company like Google will have to put in, right? Because you're a small team, you have a limited capital, so you have to put in more effort. That's the
Correct, correct. Yeah, yeah, true. So yeah,
I
that's
have a
that's the
question.
thing. Yeah, go on.
I think
I
that's
have a
pretty
question
much.
regarding monetizing the app, monetizing your product eventually.
Yeah.
Like, for example, Hike eventually died out because it didn't have a way to monetize its app. Like, Hike was selling data eventually
Yeah.
for making money. And something like Google and Facebook sell ads where the product requires consumers to give their attention, and
Mhm.
something like Adobe Photoshop where consumer directly pays for the product. So,
Yeah.
which one approach is better? For
I think
a
it's
general
same with,
start,
for what?
for
A general startup.
something
Okay.
a soft general start.
I don't think there's any best option really, because it's the same thing, right? With coding, you have there's so many options. There's no best option really. It really depends on your use case. So let's say it's a e-commerce app where you are, because they're already paying you when they buy that product. So with Adobe, like let's say, it doesn't make sense for them to give their software away for free, because what do they get in return at that point? They can't really put ads into it because it's a premium software. So at that point, they have to charge you a licensing fee, right? And when it comes to something like social media app, right? Like let's say like tomorrow Instagram started to asking for 100 rupees per month to use Instagram. You'll see the user base decline by half, because not a lot of the people will be willing to pay for, like, right? And it's always a thing where if the product is free, you are the if the product is free, then your data is the real value for the people who are collecting it basically. There's no
I
best
think,
approach.
yeah, and also like just on like the concluding note, this is what startup culture does to. I think Hemang's mindset is very nice in this sense that I think I remember this conversation of us having. I was a very torrent guy. I used to download like everything from torrent for free, and I used to get all these things. And Hemang's ideology in that sense is that like if you build a product and there is a lot of there's a lot of work into it, so you should always use products by paying for them if you can. Like,
Yeah, that's why I'm even against even like pirating games, because
yeah,
somebody is putting those 12, 14 hours a day, and you won't obviously
correct.
like it if somebody steals
Exactly.
your
Yeah.
content. So,
So it's a nice thing that you learn all these things when you are.
but yeah, like just to answer the question, there is no best approach. It depends on your actual product. You can always do more research. So if you're building it's a social media app, you can always research that. Oh, what are the common monetization methods uh, in social media apps? And if you're building an e-commerce, what are the common ways in that? So it really depends on the market and not on you.
And there are like many ways to earn money from one product today. I think so. They're like,
Yeah, so even if let's say your startup does go bust, let's say you run out of money and you can no longer afford, you could always look for an acquisition where a bigger company would just acquire your
yeah,
product.
yeah. That's what I think. That's what happened with Grow, like Zero Da's rival. Like the guy was working for it on 8 months straight,
Yeah,
and
so I
then
think that's a very good example. Although I'm not sure if Grow got acquired or not, I'm not too sure about that news. But my point is, Grow is a smaller company compared to something like Zerodha, who has like crores of customers, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
at
yeah.
that point, it really makes sense for Zerodha to acquire Grow, because for them it's less competition, and at that point they can always build up a monopoly where they are the king of the market.
Correct, correct. Yeah.
So I think that's always the aim in startups as well, that you always want to create a monopoly. You don't want competitors. So even startups will acquire other startups. So if I am 2 years into it, I'll acquire somebody who has just started, just so they don't. Even though there's no value in it, I just know that by eliminating this competitor, I am a much more safer in the market. So
Correct, correct. Yeah, just to like, yeah, just to get the throne, so to say.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think I'll end the talk here. So if you guys have any questions, then
Yeah,
we can have it at the end or right now, or whatever you guys prefer.
correct, correct. Yeah. Like,
Talking about startups, so for example, if one is clear about the idea that what one have to develop. So, for example, we have Facebook and Amazon, which were initially a website, and now they are a web-based application. So one should focus on developing a website. Yes, yes, it is bridging the gap between people, and one is clear that yeah, if I will develop an application or website, so it will bridge the gap and it will run. So one should focus on developing a website and convert it into a web-based application, or directly a application. And then if there is needed, so develop a website after application has been made.
Yeah, so it really depends on your product. If it's something you're like targeting enterprise, like let's say you're building AWS, right? Let's say at that point it doesn't make sense for you to have a mobile application, because enterprises aren't going to operate on a app. They'll want a website or a app, like a Windows application, for example, right? Or if you're targeting like a social media, right? I would not want to go on a website to use a social media in the current landscape, right? And right now, if there's a social media, I always prefer it's an app. But if it's something for businesses, they will prefer websites. So I think it really depends on your users. That's why I said, right. Always talk with your users before you build it. What do the users prefer? Do the users prefer a website or an app? And whatever they say, at the end of the day, you have to do what the user wants, right? So uh,
exactly. Like tailor it for the users, and also like Pratham, you should also check out PWA. That's Progressive Web Apps. It's basically like apps, mobile native applications power combined with like webs.
yeah, I think WhatsApp is something similar. So if you have the WhatsApp web, it's something similar to a PWA, where it's very similar to the Android app they have, and it's
Correct.
just a single page that it almost behaves like an application.
Google Maps and Uber is also a PWA example. Like you can literally go online and use it if you don't have the app. Obviously, the app's better, but you can do that
Although
on.
I would always say this, that if you're a small team, do avoid building both app and website at the same time.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
will be a
correct.
bit tough for you to manage, especially if you are the full stack guy who's managing it. It will be very difficult for you to basically keep the website up to date as well as the app. So I think PW would be a good solution for that, because at that point you can almost you can build your website and then serve it as a PWA on the app.
Exactly. Yeah, it's
I think Jaideep put in this comment that Flutter is the solution for iOS, Android, and web. Although I'm not sure if web is out yet, but Flutter Web is something still a bit new. I'm not sure how popular it is yet, but yes, Flutter is working on something that will support both iOS, Android, and web. I think it might be out. Flutter 2 recently launched. It might be out, but I haven't really checked on that.
Yeah, Flutter 2 has web compatibility.
Okay, yeah. So I think they updated it recently to release the web. So yeah, I think just talk to the users, and users will tell you what they want at the end of the day.
Okay. So, and talking about Facebook, like initially it was a website. So
Mhm.
instead of that, if it was developed as an app, so there will be any change in the stats of the application as
I
they
think
were.
Facebook. When did Facebook? I think it was like 2005, right? Something like that. I wasn't. Let me Google it.
Yeah, 2005. I just checked. Yeah, Twitter
Yeah.
in
So at
yeah.
that point, if you think, I don't think even Android phones were out yet at that point. So it makes sense for them to make a website, right? But yeah, if a Facebook, like let's say TikTok, right? I don't even remember if TikTok had a website. I think it launched as an app and it took off, right? In current scenario, it wouldn't make sense to have it as a website because not a lot of people are going to be willing to use it on a laptop, right? So, and generally browsing the web on a phone is not that friendly, in my opinion. So,
See, with app, the issue is always you have if you are a startup, and if you're not, and if you get this question again and again, that what do we do to like let the user keep the app or every day in their phone? Like you need, agar this question keeps on coming, then you should go for a website, I think, because when the team starts talking about like working on a feature that would make the user keep the app like in the phone, then it means it's supposed to be a website in that sense.
I don't think that necessarily applies, but any app or the website has to be sticky in the sense that the user should want to keep using it.
Uh-huh.
It's
Correct.
not really switching to a website won't solve that issue. If your app is or your website is inherently useless, making it into an app or a website isn't really going to solve that. App or a website is just a question of what does the user prefer, and it depends a lot on the market you are targeting. So,
Right. Any more question? I think we'll link everybody's details later on for Discord and other media, so you can always network with all the experts that are gonna talk today.
sure. I'll
And
also share my PPT with one of the moderators, and they can put it in the Discord and stuff.
yeah. So that's in that way we are very
Yeah,
connected
also
as
I have a
well.
list of resources for you guys. I'll put it at the end of the whole session, and then we can connect further on Discord.
I'll also like say send that on Discord too, like in the server. Um,
All
so
right.
yeah, Hemang.
It's been a very
Yeah.
good experience talking with you guys. If I did lack in a few things, please do forgive me. It's been a while since I've given a talk like this. So hope you guys enjoyed. And if you guys have any further questions, just feel free to connect with me on Discord, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever you prefer. And then we'll talk further. Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Hemang. And it was great having you here. Guys, just to know, like for the next topic, it's gonna be amazing. Like it's artificial intelligence with Ayush. Just give me a thumbs up in the chat to keep the energy going because it's been a while since like we talked. And it's gonna be a change of topics now. So just give me a thumbs up or like an OP in the chat. Yeah, thanks. Okay, there goes. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Nice. So you guys are up, right? Yeah, that's what I wanted, and I was like, okay. I think Hemang did a good job. I think everybody is happy with the presentation that in that sense. Okay, cool. Okay. So Ayush is also like he's in third year. We have worked on a bunch of projects. He is also been a part of startups, and he's basically he's working with Python tech stack. He's a very fluent Python programmer, and you can always contact him also later on for any of your queries. We'll be talking about artificial intelligence and more fun topics also. So yeah, so let's get started.
So hi, just a second, I'll start sharing.
Yeah, sure.
Yep.
Just a sec, like before Ayush starts, I'd like to mention this. Of course, the community is open for everyone, and the main purpose, I think, for our community was that we just wanted to make sure tech is everywhere. Like it's out there, you can just learn it. And for people in our college also, I can see most of you are from my college. So for just like a person-to-person talk from fellow college, I think there might be this thing about when you start going to college, you might observe that there is not much coding culture out there in the college, and we are just here to make sure that you have that coding culture. Like it's there, and there are people like Hemang, Ayush, me, everybody's there to just help you out with tech and learn everything that you want to on your own. So don't feel alone. We are there as a community always. And even if you are from other places, other colleges, the community is always there to help you. And just keep up the technical energy in that sense. There is always more to learn. So yeah, we can get started, Ayush, on that note.
All right. Yep. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your screen. Yeah.
Yep. So hi. Good afternoon, all. It's been some time after I have presented on to some guys. Like eventually, an year after that, after the lockdown. So please forgive me if I fumble up or something. Let's start off with the most interesting topic, and that's artificial intelligence. Like in this session, we would be having some activities as well, like not many, but one or two. And I would like you guys to be open and respond to me when even in somewhere if you find any difficulties or anything, I'm open to being disturbed if I keep it that way. So yeah, let's start off with the basic definition of the artificial intelligence. What we mean by artificial intelligence. So well, anything which can simulate the intelligence which we possess, or anything which can take decision on its own. And right now we have computers taking decisions on their own, so we call them AI-enabled computers. And well, there's this three parameters on which we can define if anything is intelligent on its own or not. And these three parameters are to correct itself. Yeah. Before we go any further, I would like to ask, and how did the machine become intelligent? Because when we were kids, or we were in sixth or seventh standard, we would be, told to memorize like computers work on ones and zeros. They are dumb machines. They need instructions to work. So I would like to ask you guys if, how did this machine become intelligent all of a sudden? I mean, anyone can unmute and answer because I don't have access to the.
Mathematics.
Yes, mathematics. So there has been many mathematical advances since the computers were discovered, and there have been a lot of advanced statistical methods and algorithms which were found out, due to which it allowed machines to mimic intelligence. Right now, machines aren't actually intelligent. They are not, you know, biologically intelligent. They are made, or they are produced to act like they have intelligence in them. So there are there was a survey last year. I'm not sure about the numbers, but every year as humans, we have smartphones and tablets and very connected devices. So we generate about some 500 exabytes of data. If you, sorry, exabytes of data. That's a very large number, very large than gigabyte, terabyte, and all of them. So that's one reason why we are seeing so much advancement in the field of artificial intelligence in the recent years. Like after 2008, there were research and the outputs of artificial intelligence came along. So before we begin, there's this question which I want you guys to guess on. And what would be the question mark here? I mean, there is this two patterns, you have to find out some pattern due to which you can solve this equation. Yeah, anyone?
I think Gia says 12.
No, not well.
Well, I think you have to try. Just with answer is okay.
All right, let's. The answer is 7. नहीं नहीं ये ज़्यादा ही सिंपल ही रखा था. But anyways, the reason why I asked you to find out the solution or even try to do it, there's a reason behind it. If you observe as a third person, like imagine there's a third person who is observing us, like when I asked you to find out the solution for this problem. So all the steps what you are thinking to find out the solution are the same steps which a machine would do in order to find out the same solution if I give the same question or the problem to the machine. So based on like if I give the same problem with the same data, like if I give him that if you do this operation, this is the answer, and I give it like there are 2 examples of it and you have to learn something from it. So what the machine would do is it would eventually figure out this formula and would compute the value for any new inputs you give it. So what your brain did and what the machine would do are both same. And this is a classic example of regression. In simpler terms, we are trying to predict and find a pattern, and based on that pattern, we are saying if based on that pattern, we can either predict the next outcomes or we can classify if that is true or not, if a particular input and given output are true or not. So eventually, machine learning or artificial intelligence is closely resembling how a human brain would work or how a human brain would approach a solution. Just instead of us having neurons and some blood and all oxygen coming along in our brain, machines have electricity and ones and zeros. So there are some examples which we encounter every day, and we all are using it. So voice assistants, Google, Siri, self-driving cars. We haven't seen one in India, and I think Tesla would have a hard time making their cars run self-driving in India. Then there's social media, music, and media streaming services. If you Yeah, I'm sure you all are on Facebook, Instagram, or any form of social media, and anything in your feed which says, uh, here are some things which are recommended for you, those also come into artificial intelligence examples.
Yeah,
Uh,
like recommendation systems also are AI. I think
Mhm.
there was a recent video surging of that monkey playing Pong. Uh,
Yeah. That's from Neuralink, Elon Musk startup.
Elon's project. It was one of
Mhm.
Elon's project, I guess.
Yeah. It's from Neuralink, and they have successfully demonstrated about how the implant on a monkey could help him control a ping pong game.
Yeah, and it's a very good example of reinforcement learning also. Like I think there was a smoothie, there was a straw जो
Mhm.
मंकी के मुंह में था एंड एवरी टाइम ही यूज टू प्ले करेक्टली तो उसको बनाना स्मूदी मिलता है तो
Yeah.
टर्न्स इन दैट वे लाइक फ्रॉम
Mhm.
द बनाना स्मूदी
Yeah,
so that's
correct.
a very good example of reinforcement learning.
Mhm. Yeah, we have types coming along in the further slides, but yeah, we have spam filters here, and I'm sure you might have seen these videos on media, like guys weirdly singing some song and moving. But the actual thing with these videos are generated by a image and still image. So if you observe here, the face of the lady behind is also moving. These videos are generated by AI AI algorithms, and you can see how crazy it is, like how in depth they have understood the structure of human face and expressions they possess. Well, when you talk about artificial intelligence, there are many terms in it, but I'll be not going into depth for all of them. I've picked pocketed two of them. One is machine learning, and another one is deep learning. Well, artificial intelligence is something that machine or a computer that can mimic human intelligence, while machine learning and deep learning are methods through which that is possible. Like we haven't been really able to show all the human intelligence or all the stretch of the intelligence that human shows in our lifetime. Like we are yet to be that advanced in the field of artificial intelligence, but in near future we would be seeing that. And there comes the machine learning and deep learning. If we There's a very thin line between both of them. The only difference is based on the algorithms which are used. So deep learning is something that uses algorithms which were created by observing human brain. So as human brains have neurons, deep learning algorithms also have neurons, and they work on it. I mean, they use neurons to create, they use structure of neurons, and based on it, they perform the task and try to learn and understand what all things the input has. While machine learning uses standard statistical techniques, which are like sum, mean, and aggregation. Well, I'm not trying not to go into deep with it. Yeah, that's a very minor difference between the two. Yeah, let's move forward. Yeah. So, what all inside artificial intelligence and inside machine learning, there are a few cases and there are types of machine learning algorithms, and these let's talk about types first. Well, there are three types of it. There is supervised learning. Well, supervised learning is simple, where imagine there's a child and you pinpoint that this thing which you are holding is an apple and this thing is an orange. So next time you give it anything and it would be able to differentiate between an apple and an orange. That is supervised learning. That is in jargon terms we say like the input and the output data are being given to the model and the machine be tries to learn and find a pattern matching the input to the output. Well, now there comes the second type, that is unsupervised learning. In unsupervised learning, we do not give the results to the model or the machine learning algorithm. What it does is it tries on its own, tries to find out yes. And then there are generators. If you remember the video which was playing that where the face were moving of the persons, those are generators. What generators are?
Hey,
What?
just a second, Ayush. I think we should. Are you guys there? I think I should take some questions if there are some questions in the
Oh,
audience,
yeah.
or any suggestions about what we should talk about. If you were there for my talk yesterday on ML, you can also tell me about that. And yeah, I mean, if it's going fast for you guys, we'd stick to the basics and make it more interactive. Because I don't see people talking right now, and I want people talking. So
Yeah.
yeah. I'll wait for some in chat conversations,
Mm-hmm.
and if there are questions going on. Should we keep it at the same pace, or should we stick to the basics? Okay, I think we should continue, but like we'll keep it okay. Okay, I think Hemang has some questions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah. Can you answer the question Hemang asked, Ayush?
I'm not.
Like in chat.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any way to measure how much data is required to train a model, or is it just trial and error? There are no such predefined ways or methods which works every time. I mean, but a general rule of thumb would be your data size should be at least I would say, based on my trial and errors, I would say at least 10 times, not 10, but 100 times your size of features. I'm going a little technical here. What features are is every unique item we provide to the model or the algorithm to find out uh, or to learn. For example, let's say we want to distinguish between a fruit like an apple or an orange, then the possible features would be their shape, color, and if we go more detail specific, then we could also add in like diameter or something. So those are its features that define or distinguish between two, the apple or the orange. That would be called as features. You know?
I think that's the answer. Yeah. Okay, let's keep this more interactive and stick to the basics for now, so that because we have one more question like we have one more session coming up, so we'll
Yeah.
stick to the basics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are the use types. So let's take an example. So the thing which we are looking at right now is a natural language processing model,
Okay.
which was created by OpenAI, and it's called GPT-3.
OpenAI is nice. Like I think you guys should check out OpenAI's projects. They are like as the name suggests, it's open for all, and it's like you can also experiment with it.
Yeah, and eventually I tried to get my hands on of their new GPT-3 model, and recently I received it after waiting for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So for this, let's see how good the model is.
Before we get into OpenAI, I think there's a question in chat. You can
Yeah.
check that. Yeah.
How much server RAM is required for ML? Like, what plan should one subscribe to if one wants to integrate it on a website or a app? Okay, like I think RAM. I'm not sure if you want to know what sort of configuration is required for deployment or for
No,
creating.
I'm asking like all processes takes place on server side. I mean like ML, if Instagram is recommending me some profiles or posts, it is running on ML. So that ML is running on a server. So how much RAM does ML take to work? I mean, just curious. I have never
Yeah.
worked on it, but
It depends on the algorithm and what type of input you are giving. So let's take an example of the fruits like apple and orange. That won't require much RAM. It would be done in like 1 GB of RAM. 1 GB of RAM would be enough for it. I mean, like I also work in Keymet, so there I have deployed an ML model, which the server configuration is very standard. Like it's 1 gigabyte of RAM, and it's working pretty smooth on that.
I think just to interrupt for 1 second here is that it really depends on how many requests do you expect your ML model to respond to. Like, are you expecting it to respond to like one request per second or like 5 requests per second, or I think it really depends on that as well. So
It's actually a mix of how your model is and how many incoming requests or how frequent your model is running. So that's a mixed factor thing.
I think that should answer the question, I guess.
Mhm. So any more questions?
I think we can take the questions later. Yeah, let's just go on.
All right. Yeah. And now this is an artificial intelligence model, like from the OpenAI. That's called GPT-3. It's natural language processing. So I can type here anything, and it would just complete the sentence. So let's say I want to write a story, and I say a long time ago there was a, and when I click on submit, you see the model has written its own story based on the few words which starting words which you had given it. And if you read it, I mean, the sentence would make sense, but I don't think the story would be that good. So, and the interesting thing is, if I run it again, I would be seeing different results this time. Oh, same result. And it's continuing the story ahead and ahead. I can also ask him to write a code for me. Yep. It has given me instructions and algorithm for finding it. So it's quite interesting how, based on the few sentence, it is able to find out all the stuff which I require. Yeah, this is a good model. Like I would recommend you, once you have a little bit, little knowledge about AI, you should definitely check out OpenAI's GPT models. They are so cool with it. And yep, let's so that was from the current project. And well, then there's a question like, where can you use the AI? I mean, right now, looking at the rate at which we are generating data, you can use AI anywhere. I mean, like some 3-5 years ago, we didn't had a portable heart rate scanner, but right now we have it in form of smartwatches. So like anything's possible right now. You can use AI anywhere you like. You just have to think about a use case which you can and you are open to. But there's a trick question which comes along when we are dealing with intelligence. That is, what if the artificial intelligence would backfire on us? So are you guys worried? Like you might have seen movies like I Spy or I Robot.
Age of Ultron.
Yeah, Age of Ultron. Yeah, better example. So,
Age of Ultron. Yeah, you need a Tony Stark to make Ultron first of all.
but like if you see, like it's a very, it's a very happenable thing. I mean, in future we can actually see those things because we don't have control over AI. It's a lot research topic right now, and scientists are trying hard to find ways into controlling the amount of decisions these AIs can produce. I mean, like consider a human, and he has all the he's open to do anything, and he can do anything with the benefit that he has a lot of memory. I mean, computers have a lot of memory and they can't forget, so they can use that memory and the data which they get to do anything. I mean, they can literally do anything. Well, this is also a good area which you can research on, and about how you can control the decisions by an AI. Well, that comes to the end of the introduction, but here are some ways you can begin in. So first of all is you have to pick up any language, and I won't recommend picking up a language, but since there are very few languages which are compatible with the libraries, like not compatible, but there are a few languages which have vast libraries for machine learning and deep learning, and one of them is Python. So I would recommend someone who wants to, start in or make their career in artificial intelligence or machine learning, maybe start with learning with Python and C++. I mean, with Python, it's pretty simple. The syntax is pretty English type, so you can understand any. I mean, you can understand the code pretty easily. And since the machine learning are all mathematics based, so you should also try to understand the basic mathematics. I mean, you don't have to do it manually, but you need to understand why it is used. And then I would recommend to study data analysis. I mean, when you are trying to create a model, artificial intelligence model, uh, you would have data coming in from many different sources, and you would want to clean it. By cleaning, I mean remove unnecessary things in the data and stuff like that. So that part comes in data analysis. So that's why data analysis is important. And after you are equipped with mathematics and data analysis, you should start with machine learning algorithms. And when you are doing anything or any project, not just with artificial intelligence, or you should always try to create it as if you have to deploy it. I mean, let's say you are making a machine learning model, then you should learn it by deploying the model. By deploying the model, what does deploying the model mean? Deploying the model means that other users can access the data from the model. For example, we saw the OpenAI website, right? That is called a deploy front end for a deployed model. So what that does is it allows user, that is us, to play with the model or play with the inputs, and the model would then send back the outputs, and that would be displayed to us. That's called complete deployment. So anytime or with any project, you should always learn it and also learn to deploy it, because you will be opened up by many things which you were ignoring at first. So yeah. So let's
So, do we have anything more after this?
no, it's complete from now.
Okay. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
Mugdha, yeah. So, Mugdha has a question. You can also unmute your mic if you want, Mugdha.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so I was asking, I had been learning machine learning like for a few days, and I kind of saw different projects on that. So I got that, but I wanted to know if I want to, like you told that if I'm ever making a project, my goal should be to deploy it. So if I really want to deploy my project, it should be something original first of all. So for that, I have to make my own data set. So I was asking what should be the right approach to take. Like obviously the
So,
data is like storing tons of memory. So how to make it efficient yet expeditious?
if you really want data, then there's this Kaggle. You can find many clean data sets in Kaggle, and since those are like Kaggle is like a hackathon type of site, so the data set is a little less. They are not very huge. They are very they are like trainable data sets. So,
Kaggle, yeah, Kaggle has good data sets. We can learn from them also. They're efficient yet sufficient
mhm.
data sets.
Yeah, they are efficient yet sufficient in the sense, and you can also find a community there. So I mean, you can, if you have any doubts, you can ask them as well. They would be.
Plus, they have good competition.
Mhm.
They have,
Yeah.
yeah, $90,000 के competitions है वहाँ पे. You can buy a Tesla from winning one competition. Oh, Anish has a question. Go ahead, Anish.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Uh, mhm. uh, वो डाउटफुल है क्योंकि जो मेथड से तुम प्रेडिक्ट करोगे वो उस पर डिपेंड करेगा. लाइक जो मेथड जो होगी वो बेसिकली कोई एक मॉडल होगा जिससे आप वैल्यू प्रेडिक्ट कर रहे हो.
Okay, sorry.
आई विल कंटिन्यू. मतलब जो आप मेथड से वो वैल्यूज प्रेडिक्ट करना चाहते हो वो एक्चुअली में मॉडल होगा. लाइक कोई भी वे होगा जिससे आपको वैल्यूज पता चले या प्रेडिक्ट कर सको आप. और आपका एंड गोल वही है कि आप कुछ वैल्यूज प्रेडिक्ट कर सको जो डेटा सेट में नहीं है. हम्म. हाँ. हम्म. हम्म. हाँ, ऐसा भी कर सकता है बट वो फीजेबल ज़्यादा नहीं रहता क्योंकि डेटा सेट में ऐसी वैल्यूज बहुत कम होगी जहाँ पे वैल्यूज ना हो. तो उसमें जो ट्रेनिंग का अप हैंड होता है कि मतलब ट्रेनिंग टाइम लगेगा वो वैल्यूज फाइंड करने में, वो बहुत ज़्यादा हो जाएगा. तो अगर बहुत ही एक दो वैल्यूज कम है पूरे डेटा सेट में तो वो आप डिलीट कर सकते हो, उसमें कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. आई मीन वो पूरी रो डिलीट कर सकते हो. या.
Okay, I think, yeah, I was also getting some echo. Okay, I think we have concluded our artificial intelligence seminar here.
Yeah.
Is there any more questions? Okay, I think there are. Okay, so thank you, Ayush. We had an amazing time. I'll link Ayush's details also with you guys. तो आप लोग आयुष को पर्सनली भी आप कोई काम के लिए मतलब कोई भी बिना स्पैम के ऑफकोर्स फॉर सम वर्क रिलेटेड क्वेश्चन यू कैन कांटेक्ट आयुष आल्सो.
Yeah, sure. And I'll also share the presentation with you and in the
Okay.
description.
Yeah, also the presentation contains good resources to many things like Ayush's and Hemang's and also Trushant's presentation. So do share those things with your friends. If like I think people, some people might not be there right now from the first session. So do send them also the links. So yeah, thank you, Ayush. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I think we got a lot of knowledge. So yeah, so last up is Trushant Adeshara. He is a very good friend of mine. He is also he recently cleared the Microsoft Student Learn Ambassador program. He is a researcher. He is a very enthusiastic researcher. He is into robotics. He has made drones. He is very good at rifle shooting, I suppose. There are many things about him which I would talk about, but I think we should stick to the topic. And so yeah, he's also helped me a lot when it's come to programming and everything. So I guess I'll leave it to Trushant. By knowing him, he doesn't need my gossip to in between. He'll take care of everyone by himself only. He's a very good orator, guys. Please be here with him. He's gonna talk about robotics, and also do bring in other people who might have left before. So his talk is also epic. So, and yeah, also give me thumbs up again just to know that you guys are still there. Sorry, I'm begging for thumbs up right now, but but I have to do this. Okay, good, okay, cool. Yeah, nice. Okay.
Good to go, Raj?
Sorry, what?
Good to go?
Good to go. Epic. Okay.
Okay.
Let's go.
You can see the screen, right?
Yeah, it's there.
Okay. So without much ado, let's start. So what is the future of robotics? So like the first question that comes is, where are they? I will be going very brief and from the upper level of robotics because in depth it's too long. But I'll make sure that you understand if this is the field for you, and if it's so, then how you're gonna move forward. So where are they? Exoskeleton suits, space robotics. If you have heard of InMo, it's a open source humanoid robot. If you have a 3D printer, some electronics, even you can make it full-fledged humanoid robot at home with friends. Then autonomous delivery, military-based applications, disaster management, then you have Lego educational kits, you have industry warehouse robots, you have medical surgery robots. You can go with biomimicry, in which you have snake kind or crab kind or different biomimicry based robots. Even you go with ornithopters, which are based on birds. Uh, Many of you are would be in the subdominion field, which is called self-driving car. It is also one of the essential aspect of robotics. And if you guys might have seen this video, I'm not going to play it, but you can check it out on video. It's a amazing humanoid robot video shooting people off. It was just for a fun, and obviously Spot Mini. So these are all the robots. So they are everywhere basically. How end of AI winter affected the field of robotics? Not going much into the depth, but everyone would be aware what is a nuclear winter, not if not AI winter. So nuclear winter is the period where you have too much of nuclear power. In the similar manner, in AI winter, this was somewhere in the time of 1970 to 1990. So what happened is people got so crazy behind AI that DARPA, even entire USA, everyone started putting millions of amounts of funding in AI. But what happened is the outcome was not that satisfying. They were not able to reach even the basic threshold. And this was because at that particular time, silicon based systems, embedded systems, microprocessors, IC, this was not that at the markup. So people started losing trust that there would be something called AI. This is way back in 1970 though. And till 1990, every research foundations, every government started withdrawing that we don't want to invest any further in AI. It is a dead end. But what happened after that? After the revolution, Industry 4.0 started taking place, then the interest of startups, entrepreneurship, companies, corporates, everything get back. And everyone wants to now get into AI. And with this, as robotics needs AI because we are going towards that embodied cognitive being. So due to that, people are moving more towards robotics. And not not being sarcastic here, cherry on the top, why right now is the right like time to get into robotics is COVID. Because initially, like let's say I'll give you an example. 1 year back, if I told you, okay, let's do a rover based survey of an entire city and maintain a lockdown, it was practically impossible. People would have come out of house and kicked those robots out, right? But in COVID we have seen using drones, we have seen autonomous mobile robots everywhere, in hospitals, in airports, in railway stations, in education. So everywhere now people are ready to accept a change, people are ready and comfortable to get into with robots, right? Basically, so funding, this is just an assumption, and I can understand right now seeing on the stats that India looks like not a good deal right now, but the scope is changing. So, and I have not considered all the jobs. These are pretty like right now in a big buzz. One is robotics software engineer, which is getting very famous, and those are basically ROS engineers per se. They get up to 2 to 10 lakhs per annum. Then there are robotics operator. They only operate the robots, they get up to 2 to 5 lakhs per annum. And the last but not the least is robotics research scientist. So here the subject matter expert, the specialization is much into depth. So due to that, they earn more amount. But if you go outside India, yeah, do consider that when you go outside India, the currency is having a conversion factor, but they get up to 65 to 90 lakhs. And these are just starting packages, okay? I'm just talking about starting packages. So what are the education for robotics? Now, here in India, the ecosystem and the education system is, I won't say bit shitty, but it's improving right now in case of robotics. But still, if you genuinely want to get into and be a credible robotics engineer or a full stack robotics scientist per se, then you ought to have kind of these kind of like progression. So when you are completing your bachelor's degree, let's say you are into computer science, probably right now, if I assume, some might be in electronics or mechanical, then after clearing your bachelor's, you won't directly get a core robotics job. It is the same as every other field that you don't get core, but robotics is so vague that you definitely, it's very hard to find a direct core robotics job after your bachelor's degree. But startups are there. So you can definitely join startups. There are some small companies which are coming out, they are kind of NGOs, hubs who want to teach other people about AI and robotics. They will hire you. There are labs. The labs which I'm talking about are kind of small research groups who are working in universities behind certain problems. I'll give you one example for that. There is a persistent perception group, I guess, in Queensland University. They only see perception of robotic systems. So they only handle and work on vision-based systems. So this way you can find a set of labs in entire India or in abroad. Then there are competitions. Yeah, these are essential. In same way as you guys in our like coding culture, we do hackathons, right? In weekend hackathons. In the similar manner, there are competitions. I'll give you one example. Me and like here, Hemang, Ayush, we went through e-yatra robotic competition last to last year. And this year we tried, but due to some circumstances, we were not able to clear. But nevertheless, it's a very rewarding experience, because to enter that robotic competition, you don't require any prerequisites. As in, per se, you need to know basic calculus or basic mathematics, but it's something you can learn in a day or two. And they will take you to a period of 6 months, and in that 6 months, you would be learning new skills, implementing those skills, and competing with the skills you have learned in those 6 months. So it's like everyone would be at the same base level, and now it depends on you how much you can learn. Okay. So this is after bachelor's degree. Then you can go in master's degree. Now, let's say this is my experience and what I am about to do. This is my plan. So when you are a computer science student, and if you want to do pursue masters, there are plenty of opportunities. Like you can do masters in AI, you can do masters in direct computer science, you can even shift and do masters in robotics and control systems. Now, each one of these has its own pros and cons, because in if you like transit from, let's say, computer science to core masters in robotics, then there would be a bridge, because you don't know electronics much in depth, you don't know some control systems in depth, then you need to bridge those gaps. So Yeah, I understand that that would be a good time. Like, you need to learn plenty of new things. You might get uncomfortable, but it's a rewarding thing because then you can say, okay, you won't only be a software guy in the group. You can be a full stack guy in the group. So in that way, master's degree is a good option. And last but not the least, after PhD, you can like you can get almost core robotics job anywhere. This is not a certainty. It depends basically on your skill set because without that, your skills, your creativity, and I can't press this any harder. You need a foundational knowledge. Now, which kind of foundational knowledge I'm talking about, I'll take it in future. In meanwhile, but here I want to show you what this field has for you. So I'm showing you 10 grand challenges which are right now in robotics and which are needed to be solved. So first of that is material and fabrication, because we can't have hard functional like static materials, structural materials. Like let's say if we have this remote, AC remote, now it is a like very structural material. The outer cover body only provides its structure. What if this structure I made it of piezo material? So now if I press the remote, then it will be able to generate few volt, very few amps of electricity from my pressure, right? So now it is not only a structural material, but a functional piece of device that if I constantly keep pressing it, then might be possible that I might hit that minimum charge or density requirement, that I would be able to glow a very small LED with it, right? So this is something like material fabrication is essential. Another part is 4D printing. Many of you guys might not know what is the fourth dimension. It is basically time. So with respect to time, you can change the shape of the materials. The very famous example is nitinol, combination of nickel and titanium. It's an alloy, and with the help of temperature, you can change its shape. That is the first challenge. Second challenge is bio inspiration. Now everything what we are having right now, every technological upliftments, every new breakthrough is one way or the other derived from nature, right? We are studying the nature, we are finding patterns, and we are trying to mimic them. So in the same way, biomimicry is a vast field. But the problem in robotics that we like, let's say if you are from a CBSE background and if you didn't hate biology and that's the reason you are into engineering, then this is one of the area where you will be having exciting opportunities, because biomimicry is a really revolutionary field, and in the future many more things are about to be like disrupting this particular field, because right now we are not able to mimic every different kind of organisms, right, available on the planet. But if we are able to study those optimized algorithms which nature has done their evolutionary part and we just need to focus them and mimic them, then it might solve many problems that we are having right now in locomotion. You want to add anything to it, Raj?
Yeah, so like there is this thing where like in robotics, I think me and Trushant, we have a debate going on about how to add consciousness to robots. I think we also talk like how you can make. So I am on like the negative side. Like I am saying it's not possible. Trushant, being an optimist about robotics and an enthusiast, he thinks consciousness in robots is possible. So we'd also like you guys to join us on that debate sometime soon.
Definitely, it would be wonderful and rewarding experience to have amazing views of the community.
Also, like just because we took a break from the presentation, I'd like to add Trushant is also a very knowledgeable person about the opportunities that are in tech about relating to like masters. It's very मतलब अभी तो बहुत time है. You guys are in first year, I guess, most of you. So, but still, he's very knowledgeable about what to do after bachelor's. If you want to know about colleges outside India, if you want to know international opportunities, he's the best guy. He's the guy to go to. So even I consult him about like international opportunities. He's very good with that. So if ever you want to know, you can contact him. I think gone. Yeah.
So the third problem, yeah, this problem is the dominant problem. It's like if we can solve this, everything else will be solved. So better power sources. Now, why everything stuck to this problem? The reason is if a single cell, matlab in a human organism, if a single cell, if we consider, it can approximately generate energy of 56 kilojoules. And our batteries, even lithium ions or lithium polymers, are not even, I guess I can say, I guess 50% closer to that. So this is the major problem that we are facing right now. So chemical engineering, those who are interested or are like data analysis in chemicals, they can come up with some of this, one or the other way of a solution to this. And there are many like new innovations coming in this field, because like even Elon Musk is trying to harness sun's energy in one way or the other, and that is the ultimate source, like reliable, friendly source that we have right now. So this is one of the major problems. Fourth problem is communication in robot swarms. So swarm robotics is very much inspired from obviously nature. Ants, they work in swarm. There are like locusts that we saw, they all were in swarms. So basically swarm robotics can solve many problems, because let's say you have a one huge drone. Okay. Now if you are in a disaster management situation and you want to enter a building, but the building's open size is very small, then your drone is at a waste, right? Even if it can carry a person out, but it can't go in. So what's the use, right? Instead of that, if you have a modular drone system where your drone can break down into small drones, like it's a very modular system, like a origami based system, then in such a case scenario, you can expect, okay, when the size or the opening is small, the drones can distribute themselves, can go inside and then reform again. Okay, but in that situation, bringing out the person from that small hole is a complicated task, but that's a whole another theory. But you get the gist of it. So this is one of the major problems. Fifth is navigating unmanned environments. Yeah, sensor fusion. Sensor fusion. Raj, you wanna add?
Yup. I just wanted to ask like two funny things actually. So like
Okay.
one of them being, you did mention to me once about like this movie. I don't remember this movie. Uri.
Okay.
Uri had the drone thing that Garud.
Ornithopter. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So I'd like you to talk about that because that did intrigue me about robotics.
Hmm.
And second was like Big Hero 6 also contained this thing
Baymax.
about
Baymax.
So
One of
like
my
other
favorites.
than
Yeah.
Baymax there was microbots in it.
Microbots.
So I
Yeah.
wanted to know if that's a possible thing, like is it like possible or not?
Okay. First to the Uri wala thing. So in Uri, they basically used a ornithopter. So ornithopter are those kind of robots which are inspired from birds. Now there are many revolutionary research going on this field, but the bottleneck that we are facing right now are three bottlenecks. First bottleneck is in terms of battery, which I told, because birds need to be very light in weight. That is the first bottleneck. Second bottleneck is feathers. Now, like feathers are aerodynamic assistance, right? Kind of for the ornithopter. This aerodynamic assistant, now which material that we're gonna use for this particular feathers and which pattern? Like there are plenty of different categories of birds out there in the nature, right? Everyone would be having a different configuration and different characteristics. So which one is the most optimized to be used in our ornithopter is the challenge. So these are the three primary like problems, or we can say challenges, which are waiting for you to solve. So this is about Uri. Second thing is, as you told about microbots. Now in robotics, there are various, we can't say categorization, but yeah, you need to take into consideration about your capabilities, because when you in Big Hero 6, the microbot was okay, almost around a palm size, so that was not, you can't consider it to be a very small microbot. But if you see the motors that were used in that particular microbot in the joint axis, which were comparatively small, and they worked on a magnetic resonance based complex mechanism. So that's not a hypothetical concept that they use. There are research going on in magnetic resonance based servo motors, but still we are too huge. Well, I'm quoting Feynman, we are too huge to find those small things, right? So that comes under the section of nanorobotics. So in nanorobotics, you need equipment in order to find micro or nano things, and then you come up, like you need nano motors to make microbots. So that is the gist of it, and that is the research which is also going on right now. So did that answer two of your questions, Raj?
I guess yeah.
Okay.
It included
Sir,
difficult words, but yeah.
I have a
Yes, bro.
question.
Yes, go through.
Yeah, go on, bro.
Sir, in robotics we have moving parts, right? So
Agreed.
we have some ways now that we can charge our phone like while we are walking. So we can't use that energy in charging the batteries of robots too. Is that possible? I was just thinking about it, and
Okay.
I thought I should ask you.
Are you talking about like if we walk so much, why not to put a piezo plates on our shoes and a battery, and then when we are walking, we will generate energy and we can store that energy and use it, right?
Yeah, but yeah, that
Kind
kind
of.
of.
You want to add
Yeah,
something to that?
no.
Okay. So okay, this is a good solution, but it's not a complete solution. The problem is conversion factor. Now, this effect that we are talking about, that when we generate pressure, when we put on pressure and we get electricity, it's called piezoelectric effect. Everyone knows it. It's a piezo material. It's a quartz based and silicon based. We are using it in our watches so that the watches are more reliable in terms of time and precision. So the issue is that piezo materials are fragile in nature. So what happens is, even if we put it like, if I make a sole, like shoes sole, out of a piezo plate, and then I'm connecting it with a battery and I'm using it, so it will generate electricity. People have done projects. I have seen that, tried to mimic one in my when I was in 6th or 7th grade, but failed miserably. In 10th, I did a project on piezo, but the problem happens in conversion factor. We are not able to generate that much energy, which would be essential enough to like support entire robotic systems. But yeah, it's a good point to start. There are new materials coming. Research is going on that those kind of materials would be having better conversion efficiency. So this is a far-fetched but yet possible idea in the future.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. And don't call me sir. I'm just like a geek like you. Okay, that makes me very
Yeah,
conscious.
I think we should not don't call anyone sir
Ah,
Okay.
Bhogyata or something.
okay.
Okay,
So
and we have a theory in like a cool theory by Jaideep in chat. You can check that later and talk about that. Like I think we should go on with the presentation for a while, but
okay,
we'll for sure come to that in a second.
okay. Let me complete like the 10 challenges, and then we can get back to that. You know?
Sure.
Okay. So the fifth challenge, this is one of the major challenge, and right now every company, every self-driving car company is trying to solve this, but they have different approaches. One is some people are using SLAM, like some are using VSLAM, which is a visual SLAM. So SLAM generally is simultaneous localization and mapping. Not going into nitty-gritty of it, but it generally means you know where you are in a map. That's it. It's kind of a like very layman term reduction, but it relies majorly on sensor fusion, because we are using lidars, we are using lasers. Lidar basically depends on many different radio waves or lasers, so, and cameras for like vision systems. But the data fusion is one of the essential aspect, that how IMU data, because let's say I'll give you a better example to this, by bringing it down to humans. Two people, let's say me and Raj are talking, but let's say Raj is speaking very fast and I'm speaking slow. So now the problem with me is I'm not able to understand Raj. And if I speak slow, so Raj is able to understand, but it will take more time uh, to understand the entire information because I am slow, right? So there is no frequency match between our conversation, and due to that, if let's say we talk for 10 minutes, then Raj would be able to converse a good amount of content than me, right? And there are high chances that I won't be able to comprehend all of that. So similar situation happens when you are using different sensors. Let's say you have a IMU, fancy way of saying I know you in XYZ. मतलब XYZ plane में I know where you are at every point. That is the purpose of IMU, inertial measurement unit. So if I am having a IMU and I am having a camera, so we all know कि camera have frames per second, कि एक second में वो कितने frames खींचता है, right? So if we compare both of them, then IMU has a response rate of almost twice or thrice as much of that of camera. मतलब in short कि IMU बहुत ज़्यादा data देता है एक second में as compared to camera. अब मुझे इन दोनों को use करना है, then how I'm gonna like compensate? So that is called sensor fusion method. So this is a very very vast field because हर एक sensor different configuration का होता है. There are noises. We are not considering noise at all right now. हर एक चीज ideal सिखाई गई है बचपन से physics में. So we are moving towards that only, but that's not the true thing, right? Reality is completely different in wild. So this is one of the major problems. Then sixth is AI that can reason, a very debatable topic between me and Raj, and how cognition can be implemented in AI. So, like in robots, मतलब there is a new approach coming into robotic systems. हम क्या करते हैं? Let's say एक humanoid robot बनाना है, then we know कि humanoid robot would be like humans, so it would be having one torso, two hands, and the hands would be moving in certain manner. Now let's say एक हाथ के अंदर like you have three motors, right? So you know कि हर एक का degree of freedom 3 है उस particular hand का. So let's say मैंने तुम्हें बोला कि you need to pick up a ball and you need to place it somewhere. So now you will are you gonna do a manual coding कि okay यहाँ पे हाथ XYZ इस coordinate पे है, उसे इससे इस coordinate पे ले जाओ तो उसे object मिलेगा, उसके बाद उसे उठाओ, उसके बाद इससे इस coordinate पे वापस उसकी entry. So you won't be doing those manual work, right? So there is a new framework coming called reinforcement learning that we saw from Ayush. And reinforcement learning, what it does basically is कि you give only 2 points, XYZ, like X1, Y1, Z1, and another point X2, Y2, Z2. Now the reinforcement learning ka model, what it will train is कि okay, I need to go from point A to point B. So I just need to find the minimum distance or minimum possible iterations that I need to do. So it will try all possible outcomes for 1 or 2 days, and after that, whatever position you give, it will go in seconds. Now it is able to, it's like a kid. मतलब हमने बच्चे को कैसे सिखाया कि like okay, you take a glass, you hold it in your hand, there is water, so you don't move it too much, don't be shaky, and then you drink water from it in a proper essence. In the similar manner, we are trying to teach robotic systems by themselves with the help of these kind of modules to do tasks efficiently. So that is the sixth problem. Seventh is brain computer interface. If you guys are watching, what do you say, TV series, there is one series, it's called Scorpion. So not going into much of the characters, but in that there was one section, one episode where brain computer interface is considered very deeply. And this, what it's going to help exactly is we would be able to communicate with machines at a subconscious level, which even we are not aware of. So the true possibilities of a human being that we have not yet find out would be able to decode it with the help of brain computer interface methods. And researchers are trying how they can mimic the entire neurological pathway of human beings and find the exact reason of that consciousness. So this is one of the very vast field, and I'm bringing all the fields in very small, very brief manner. So don't rely on just this much knowledge. You need to learn a lot more if you are interested in it.
Definitely, just take just the gist from what we are talking, and you can just go on and just keep checking everything out at your own pace later on.
True. So eighth problem is social robots. Like right now, you might have seen that many hospitals are employing UAV robots like slam cars so that they can disinfect in the entire hospital. And they are also trying to, in order to comfort elderly people, they are going with robots. This is a Neo basically. This is a very costly robot though. I guess around $23,000 or something. It's costly, I guess. I'm not certain of the cost, but yeah, it's costly right now. But these kind of social engagement robots are the future caretakers and future first responders, because we don't want to harm humans' life, right? In COVID situation, we have came across many case scenarios where in other developed countries, they are using robotic arm to do swab tests instead of employing humans. So in this way, social robots are the future, but there are too many things to consider. You should also, if you are a kind of social perspective person, you should definitely check out this field, because there are many debates, very interesting debates going. And it is very silly debate. Okay, we won't be able to understand, but if we put our parents in those situations, then we will be able to understand the term social. Because let's say Tesla just launched a autonomous car in India. Let's assume that all the algorithms are running perfectly valid, and you are crossing a road, and a Tesla is coming towards you. So your perception would be, okay, this is a Tesla. Might be it could be running in autonomous mode, but you are okay to cross the road. You are like certain कि if it's identifying a human, it will see me and stop. But if you put a parent, your any elder grandmother, grandfather, if they are crossing the road and in the driver's seat, if they don't see anyone sitting and the car is running autonomously, and if they came to know, okay, okay, this car is running autonomously, would they cross the road? Or would they be having fear that if this car doesn't find me, doesn't understand me, and it will take over me? So this is a very, very huge debate. I just wrote it down.
Plus, I think Tesla's like auto drive modes are really nice, and I have seen like a bunch of there's this good thing about Elon Musk. He has this thing what I think Hemang also added, that he's a firm believer about this fact that you, if there is something already created, you don't like go on and make it again.
True.
You know. So like he like Tesla's codes are open source on GitHub right now. Like you can right now go on and check their AI and ML and everything that they've written till now. And I think they are good, but even I won't rely personally on a auto driving car right now. It's crazy.
It's
just to rely. Yeah.
Psychologically, it's
Just to add a couple of things regarding Tesla is that right now, even though they do have full self-driving capabilities, it's also limited. So the car automatically detects that, let's say I'm a driver and I'm like, okay, I want to sleep right now, and I'll put the car on autopilot, will not allow you. The car will detect that you're going to sleep and it will try to wake you up through various sound cues, and if you don't wake up for 30 seconds, it will automatically park the car at the nearest spot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So even though there's full self-driving, they are still limited. Like it's not allowed that you'll just keep full self-driving on for a trip of like hundreds of kilometers.
I
there
think
was an
Tesla's-
incident happened because of that in
okay.
initial days. It's like a guy just slept in the car, and I guess they are giving the argument that the vision camera was not able to find the white truck because of the truck was colored white. It was not able to identify and went on underneath
Yeah.
the truck.
So what's happening is during dusk and dawn, a lot of them the sunlight is coming at a certain angle, and because it relies on cameras to, I'm not sure if it's exactly cameras or some sort of ultra vision or what, but sometimes it does happen that it's not able to recognize even like an object nearby because of some sort of vision disparity there.
True.
So basically, it might not be safe sometimes. Like you cannot do that on like in India. It's not a question. Also.
Viable option. Definitely not for at least another 10 years.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
Go on.
Yeah. So the ninth is this field is very interesting, and right now it is seeing a boom because most the issue in India was that engineers were engineers, medical people were medical people. There were no coherence between those two. And recently, I guess IIT Madras launched a program in which they are employing like in medicine, those people who are in medical, they are also given training for engineering so that they can think of automation. So in that way, medical robotics is also seeing a huge drastic change. And what is the hype all about is like we want to save human life, right? And the surgeon who is performing the surgery is a human. There might be a tendency that he might make a small error or mistake, and with the help of assisting surgery robots, he might not do that, or it would be like kind of a precaution. So that's the reason whole medical robotics field is emerging so wide. And last but not the least, ethics. Ethics is a major issue in robotics, and this movie just got released in 2021 outside the wire, and I'll suggest everyone of you to watch it because I don't want to give a spoiler, but you should definitely watch it. It's a worth a watch, and you will be able to understand how ethics play a very important role in robotics, and as well as when it comes to warfare. Because if a warfare comes right now, I'm 100% certain that DARPA is ready with humanoid robots to go in war, but India would be nowhere near. Even China is ready per se. So robotics warfare is a whole another theme, whole another theory. But yeah, you should definitely check out this movie.
Sure. Also, like you should always check out movies related to like they give a very nice post. I think we should like I guess most of us might have watched this movie called Lucy. It's also like it's also very nice. It has a good perspective about this too. So yeah,
Okay.
that's the end of the 10 challenges.
Yep, that is the end of the 10
I think
challenges.
there is someone in the chat. Someone mentioned something. If you could,
Yeah. I guess
probably.
as Jaideep told, right? In the future there would be like,
Jaideep has a theory. I think Praveen also mentioned something. Just like if you could address that.
yeah. So Jaideep was suggesting that in future there would be division between superhuman, that is cyborgs, and normal humans. Uh, uh, right now also there is much of a difference between rich and poor, right? In the similar manner, in future, rich would be the person having more technology, and the poor would be considered person having good technology but not as good as the rich person, right? So there would be a competition for software, there would be competition for high-end precision based, let's say, exoskeleton suits. If we start like Elon Musk, basically he seems to be doing Mars thing pretty fast. So let's say if we go on Mars, then everyone would be betting on which exoskeleton suit is the best, which one is the costliest. Same as the situation right now in cars, it would be something different in robotic system or R2D2. We might be having like a home assistant robotic systems. So yeah, definitely Jaydeep, there would be something like this. Uh, okay, but we still have a very good leverage of what do you say, electromagnetic pulse disruptor. I don't know how they're gonna make like robotic system foolproof of that, but still material science is going good, so that might also promise it.
Okay.
I want to know your
This
perspective.
will. Yeah, go on, Jaideep. Go on. Go on.
I want to know your perspective on capitalism related to the innovation industry, basically all innovation. Because
Capitalism.
capitalism is driving innovation, but there is a certain wrong ethics in that, like data leaks and everything like that. So, what's your opinion on capitalism regarding companies using the argument of capitalism and making wrong decision ethically?
To add this, I'll give you one review or when I was researching on DARPA. If people here doesn't know what is DARPA, DARPA is a defense research agency of USA, and they are the prime responsible persons for designing advanced warfare systems. And we right now only see those robotic systems that they want us to see. Other than that, they are having millions of private projects going on, which are way beyond our imagination and way beyond our time. It is been proved in one of the leaks, and they are designing such kind of systems which are very devastating. And their technology and their strategy of capitalism is like that. They every year they have this kind of events. It's called what is the event? I guess DARPA event challenge, I guess, and they give a specific task. So the task would be design a humanoid robot which would be able to act as a human and would be able to drill a hole, climb a staircase, drive a car automatically, completely. And what they will do is, if they people all around the world come up with their teams, let's say 10 teams participate in that, and let's say the first team will directly sign a contract with DARPA. So in this way, they are grabbing all the amazing minds from all over the world to them. And once you are into defense, you are completely out of world, because then their laws and everything will govern you. And this is very, very political, very bureaucratic, and it is very, I understand the capitalism is a very, very strong issue here. And India, in some way or the other, has been breaking it in the past. Because take the example of Mangalyaan, right? They were not ready to, before even Mangalyaan, when ISRO was established, they were not ready to, NASA was not ready to provide us basic rocket systems or basic technology for per se. If you are not aware of all this, you should definitely read A Young History of ISRO by R. Arvamundan. It's a very good book. And if you don't want to get into book, there is a podcast on Spotify. I'll share it to you. But in that, we can see the entire progress from zero to hero of ISRO. Because each and every scientist has given their entire life just to get this space project getting gone on. And the Mangalyaan mission, you might have seen the movie. So in that way, when innovation is so drastic, then in that, and it's so widespread and people know it, then capitalism can be succeeded, kind of, but can't be a it's a debatable topic though.
First of all, capitalism, I think, goes into the politics of things, which I think we should not like go into. I think the chat contains like 2, 3 questions more about like I think it's more than robotics for now, but I think we should still like address them.
Okay, Sagan is saying, do you think that robots will replace doctors? Like if we talk about surgeries, that's not gonna happen for at least next 60 years or 100 years. Means our lifetime we would be having human doctors.
Correct, and like I think if robots take over like the work that are being done by people, it's not something that's new. I think
And that the job they will take on will be menial jobs, not surgery is a
yeah.
complex. I agree they do have precision, but ultimately the ethics section comes into surgeries because doctor is the only person who knows what is the right call according to him or her. But it's the decision is in the hand of a human, and I don't think laws will allow to like transfer that decision to a robot in near future person. So hope that answers
I
you.
think I think there were 2, 3 major, like you said, the 10 challenges. There are like 3 major challenges for the world itself. Like
Very true.
one of them, no,
Is the
like
world
one of,
ready?
correct. Like one of them being like cleaning the whole galaxy, like what are waste we are creating. So that's circulating around Earth, and it's actually breaking our own satellites. And whoever solves these things, they're gonna get $1 million also. So
There are
like,
many million-dollar questions. NP complete, NP
yeah,
hard, the
yeah.
most famous.
So yeah, so like if you can clean the galaxy, you get $1 million also. Yeah.
Another question, Pratham says, who knows which superhumans other categories also known to us in future? Aliens, very debatable topic. Won't go into that.
Yeah, let's not get into. I
Into
think
that.
this is the thing. Whenever Trushant comes up, people start diving into topics that are always out of syllabus for us.
I know.
But you
Let
can
me
always
let me
contact him later. Like he'll deal with that.
Yeah. Then there is Deval Patel. He says, "What are your views on graphene as a substitute for silicon? As we are going through a bit of silicon drought." Agreed. Yeah, we are going through a silicon drought. But the problem with difference between graphene and silicon, it's like graphene is one of the constituent of carbon-based system, but what exactly I don't have much of detail, but as far as I know, the issue won't be solved completely because graphene has some properties at a nano level which are very different from silicon and some of which are not yet discovered. So research is going on that because graphene sheets are being used right now as a fabric for next level of smart bending screens and touchpads. So but it is completely different from silicon. It has different reactions, it has different number of schematics characteristics, and due to that it will take bit of a time, but still people are trying to find a substitute. Hope they find, or else we need to find it. So hope that answers. And Jaideep again says there is a beautiful quote about warfare. Humans haven't found a solution to war, but they have found ways to kill man better. Definitely, bro. Definitely.
Yeah.
So should I carry forward, Raj? Yeah.
Sure. There's like one last thing if you wanna check that out.
Okay. Uh, Pratham says it's like impossible to trust 100%. The success rate will be more as compared to a human doctor. Still, I don't think that trust factor will be generated by definitely. It's a debatable psychology based topic, and there are many papers. If you are interested, we can talk on that. There are plenty of papers that I have read just to understand human psychology of humans towards robots.
Also, yeah, and also like if you are interested in like robotics, you guys should check out Boston Dynamics.
Definitely.
Boston Dynamics has amazing. I think I asked you how good the robots are and if I could buy them, but they're like $84,000 or
Dollar.
something like that. But they're really nice. Like you should check. They also dance like
Ah,
robots.
amazing
Yeah.
dance. Amazing.
Okay, let's move on. Let's move
Yeah.
on.
So what should be your next step? So I'll share this PPT. It might seem overwhelming, but there are links so you can click on each photo and it will redirect. You start with the most basics, like in programming. For robotics, you need to understand many concepts, but you should be knowing somewhat Python, somewhat C, C++. You need to get good with Linux-based operating systems, or to contribute to the contributor of Linux, I'll say GNU Linux, GNU Linux, because no one says GNU and it is disrespectful to Jonathan. So you should start doing GNU Linux, like get used to it. Then once you are good with this, these are your programming prerequisites. You need to be see. I understand that in high schools and in 11, 12, we all might be hating either physics, maths, or somewhere or the other, or biology, right? But remember that here you don't need to memorize stuff, okay? You just need to understand it, and you would be having reference anytime you want to see. So learn physics or mathematics in a fun way by doing it, not just cramming it, okay? And I'm not talking about going into deep mathematical equations per se. Raj, there is a bit of a disturbance from your side. Yeah, thanks. So I am not talking about going in depth and doing 14 variable calculus or something like that, but just the basics, as much as you will be able to code your algorithms, because it is one of the essential thing in robotics. Then you start with a basic microcontroller, Arduino per se, and then you move forward to a microprocessor, Raspberry Pi. Once you are good with the basic knowledge of electronics, bit of a programming, bit of a physics, bit maths, so you are like on a good scale. Then you can start and really get into something very core, that is ROS. Now ROS is the operating system of the future for robots, and I can't press it any harder, and everyone should know its basic understanding, because this is the future. Instant prototyping, instant deployment, instant robot fabrication. People even make entire robotic startup in 2 weeks just because they have ROS, and that's how powerful it is. And right now ROS 2 just got released, and it is way too amazing. So just check that out. And after all this, you start doing projects. You start with small projects. Even making a small servo motor move is a project. But once you take step one step at a time, you will be at in a certain, let's say, if you dedicate your like 1 year, then I'm sure if you're genuinely doing putting your efforts in, then in 1 year you would be able to make good reliable robotic systems which you can demonstrate. Some learning, helpful organization and learning resources. Guys, every year there is Yantra competition. I genuinely feel it's good. That's the reason I'm sharing. No, no promotion stuff. Though I am a freelancer there, but no promotion stuff. But I genuinely feel it's really very good. Everyone should give it a try. So just check it out. They have many various programs like entrepreneurship and stuff. If you are interested, just check that out too. Then Udacity. So Udacity, you don't need to. People say, okay, Udacity is costly, but yeah, you can get everything in torrent. Okay, don't tell anyone, but yeah, you can get in torrent. Not the updated, but yeah.
Hemang's here. Hemang's here.
Okay. So on. So yeah, on Udacity, edX, you can audit the courses. So you can get the courses for free, just you won't get the certificate, but there are good courses on edX. And if you're specific of robotics and MATLAB, then you can do courses from ETH Zurich, which is in Switzerland. It's very good. MIT OCW, if you are not knowing, then you are missing literally something very, very amazing. Okay, it's a revolution in education. MIT OCW is MIT's open courseware. Everyone knows. If not, then MIT is Massachusetts Institute of Technology, which is one of the prime. And the courses they have delivered are free, open source on YouTube. You can go to their original site. There is a graph-based representation of every subject. Like let's say if you want to get good with mathematics and specifically calculus, so they have an entire series that okay, 18.01 is a calculus 1, 18.02 is a calculus 2. You can go to YouTube, you just write that code, and you get the entire tutorial, and it's completely from start to end with references. So it's a very good way to learn and self teach yourself, field of robotics, mathematics, anything you want. There are plenty of things to like you can go on. And there is Stanford Online. And if you want to learn a bit of a core robotics, and don't know where to start, like kinematics and stuff, then QUT Center of Robotics has a QUT Academy online. Courses are like, it's not courses kind of thing, but yeah, the video lectures are free. You can check out, and they are really very good because they explain it in a practical essence, right? If you are a bookworm, then only check this slide. There are three books I have mentioned. I can't comprehend entire knowledge, but these generally constitutes of the starting point. So the standard textbook we say is Introduction to Autonomous Robots by Sigvart, and which is one of the really very good book. I have read it and I know for it. So, and these are the only three books. Okay, I have a almost bucket list of 50 to 60 books. Okay, you don't need to read all of them, but they are really very good books. And get into habit of reading research papers if you are interested in robotics. And I'm not asking you to understand it in depth, because some person might have spent entire 2 to 3 years of his life writing a single paper, and that you are expecting to understand it in 5 minutes of read. That's not possible. Okay, so, not discouraging you, but whenever you have a research paper in hand, just read three things in the initial stages. That is the introduction, what is the purpose, and the conclusion. And once you are good with it and you have the prerequisite foundational knowledge, you can directly contact to that person who has wrote the paper. He will help you out to understand, and then you can understand the paper in depth. But make sure you have a habit of it. It's really very good. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Insta, mail, anywhere. I'm on mostly all platforms except for Snapchat. So I sum up.
Okay, that's all from your side.
Yeah, I'm dead. Yeah.
Okay, guys, I think it's been a very long session. It's
Really very long.
like we are from like 3:45, and I'm very happy that many people stayed throughout and kept asking questions, and I'm very intrigued by like your enthusiasm. So yeah, thank you everyone. Thank you Trushant, thank you Hemang and Ayush. Okay, thanks Pratham. Okay. Yeah, thank you everyone for everything that you contributed to today's session. We'll come back with more.